Traveling on the roads, take it easy. We are officially now in a season that is really fast-paced, party-driven, go enough places season, on the road a lot season, holiday in our mind. And we're not even thinking emancipation or independence. Jamaican people just mad right now. So take it easy on the road. Be very, 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 very careful on the road. We've got a situation on the island. Peter Tosh has another name for it. But yeah, we've got a situation where we are seeing more motor vehicle accidents with every year. And sometimes they do the statistics thing again at us. They say it's declining, and, you know, they compare it to probably the immediate year passing, and not necessarily the way people live. I think the people who are doing this, you know, are people who are thinking in a linear fashion. 1, 2, 3, 4. We need some women in places of serious decision making on this island, because you know how we think complex, right? We're seeing the thing in circles and flowers and snowflakes and all different kinds of fractals. We're seeing the fractal. We design things like how ants design things. You know, we see the spider web. We're good at connecting things. It is true that men think linearly. Do not write me and text me about it. So, and this is a problem we have with all these statistics that they're churning out on us about what is declining and what is going up and what's going down and so on. So, the carnage on the road continues in Jamaica. We have a research from the late Professor Fred Hickling, that we're not paying much attention to. It is still relevant because he speaks to personality disorders in Jamaica, and he talks about how these personality disorders ultimately can, and if nothing is done, result in greater angst and greater problems for Jamaica. And I think we're seeing that now in ways that even Professor Hickling himself, were he here, probably would be not shocked, but flabbergasted that because we haven't dealt with the mental health problems and the personality disorders in this island, because we haven't done that, we find ourselves, and I'm speaking specifically to road accidents now, personality disorders and road accidents in Jamaica. They are connected.
Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory. When we lose our African connection, we lose our royal connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world people. Without the African connection, we are a disjointed people, begging for the entry into somebody else's house.
It is 20 minutes now, going up to 7 o'clock here inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running Africa and going through until 10 o'clock. The BK comes in at 10 with the Sunday sunshine, so stand by for that. Hey, we've got lots to get through. As we sojourn the long eve, 5 days, it's 5, yeah, 5 days, to the 187th anniversary of emancipation. We are aware that the promise of emancipation is still not realized. The promise of emancipation is still not realized, not yet materialized. Gonna get beyond and above our threshold of complacency. We have to get beyond our threshold of apathy. And we must get above and beyond and move away from this threshold of disunity. In the words of Thomas Sankara, the enemies of a people are those who keep them in ignorance. In the words of a sergeant for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who is your enemy? So a sergeant for Kwame Nkrumah asks, who is your enemy? And he tells us, in a whole treatise, Thomas Sankara also answers the question. The enemies of a people are those who keep them in ignorance. What do we have here in Jamaica? The black masses of the Jamaican people are subjected and subjugated to a curriculum that keeps us ignorant. Ignorant of our identity, ignorant of our history, ignorant of our culture. So as we get to this Emancipation Day celebration, they're still saying emancipendence. Tie them tongue, ancestors, when they say that word. When they throw emancipendence at us, tie them tongue, tie them tongue, tie them tongue. We can no longer and we will no longer reconcile with the delusional fallacy of democracy. Donald Trump, if anything, has shown us that there's no such thing, or that the time for democracy is gone. Our responsibility is to unite against oppression and bring our oppressors to confront the reckoning of our discontent. We are finding ourselves at a critical and a pivotal time in history, and this is no joke. It is a time that gives us the power, affords us the power of choice to step away from this paradigm of ifset, of chaos and disorder and evil, into a paradigm of ma'at, of truth and order and justice and reciprocity. We must make it plain. For this requires some plain speaking, and for the sake of Africa and for Africans, let us speak plainly. Standing ready for the revolution. In unity, we can achieve this black power, this empowerment. But we've got to organize in earnest to survive, to thrive, to stay alive, to thrive, to be unafraid of the consequences. Because men in earnest do not fear consequences, much less women. For throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph. In the words of the Majesty, we will not be silent. We cannot be silent. If not now, then when? But unity is the only acceptable goal. Yesterday, we remembered the 26th of July movement, 1953, led by Fidel Castro. Its main objectives being Oh, let me do this quickly.
The time on IRI FM is
6:46, and we were talking about the 26th of July movement led by Fidel Castro. The main objectives of the movement being the distribution of land to peasants, the nationalization of public services, industrialization, honest elections, large-scale education reform. And sometimes we need to go back to go forward. Sankofa, look back to go forward. I think this is basically a time for us to do that. And we can look at Cuba again, look at the objectives of the 26th of July movement. But we can also look again at the ideology as articulated by Michael Manley. We can look again, because nobody's articulating that ideology right now. And even if they're saying it, they're not doing it. But we can Sankofa. We can Sankofa to Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey. The blueprint, the black print is all there. Hardly anything needed. Just a little tweak here and there for the AI world. So this is where we are. Whether or not we're going to make some movement on things. I was speaking earlier about traffic accidents in Jamaica, and I'm going to hopefully come back to that quickly. But let me just say this, because we woke up this morning to news that the Don Webby, the former Group Chief Executive Officer of Grace Kennedy Limited, has died. He was 62. He passed, according to a report in the Jamaica Gleaner, he passed on Saturday. He had been ailing. He retired from the food and finance conglomerate, that's Grace Kennedy Limited, in February after initially going on leave to focus on his health. During his tenure as Group CEO from 2011 to 2025, Webby more than doubled the company's revenue from $58 billion in 2011 to $155 billion in 2023. And this is what the company said, as reported in the Jamaica Gleaner this morning. It added that Webby spearheaded aggressive mergers and acquisitions, strengthening the 103-year-old conglomerate's footprint across the Caribbean, North and Central America, the United Kingdom, and Europe. He was a chartered accountant. He joined Grace Kennedy in 1995 and held senior roles across its food and financial divisions before being tapped to lead the group following the retirement of business titan Douglas Orain. Don Webby is pretty well known to me in terms of telephone calls and texts and so on. He is an interview I never got. And one of the reasons why I reached out to him over the years for interviews was what I saw, what the plans he had for taking Jamaica into Africa. And also, before he entered politics, and some of the comments he made, but his commentary. You know, it's interesting because he looked at the situation, recognized what it was, diagnosed it, called it what it was, and you remember that op-ed in the newspapers that he wrote, literally calling the politicians to boot and naming the situation for what it was, and literally identifying that if it continued on the same trajectory, it would be disaster for Jamaica. Are we building a nation or are we building a hut? In other words, it's basically what his op-ed was about. And that's when I called him the first time. And later on he started, no, I think that might have been the second time, because he started talking about Africa, Jamaica into Africa before that. But interestingly enough, he always declined to be interviewed on my program. I kind of know why. But later on, he was co-opted, if you will, into politics. And that was a shame. That was a shame, because he was someone who had come out speaking strongly against the ills that he saw in Jamaica and what was happening because of politics in Jamaica. And that might be one of the reasons why they went for him, you know. I don't think that he managed much as a politician. But to say that he was appointed a government senator, minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service from 2007 to 2009. He returned to the Senate in 2016, and he served until his resignation in November 2024. The government of Jamaica awarded him the Order of Distinction Commander Class in 2017, and the Order of Jamaica, the country's fourth highest honor, in 2024. My sincerest condolences to his family, to the Grace Kennedy family, and to Justice colleagues and friends, so many people who know Don Webby. Don Webby was a good man, and he meant well, but he was co-opted into politics, and I don't know how much more he could have done then. And sometimes we have to call a spade, even, when we're saying condolences. If you go back to read his op-ed, it will give you an idea of who Don Webby was, of who Don Webby could have been. I followed him on Twitter for years. I wrote him many times, DM him, just say, come on my program, let us have a conversation about this. This coming from you, Don Webby, to our audience here, will also make a difference. But as I said before, he always declined. He never came on. And as I said also, I know why and I understand. Once again, condolences to Don Webby's family, to his friends, to his colleagues, to the Grace Kennedy family. He was a stalwart of a man. He was. He meant well and could have achieved so much more if he hadn't gone into politics. 7 minutes now, going up to 7 o'clock. Quickly, I was telling you about Professor Fred Hicklin's research, early 2000s. It is still available. Just Google or ask any one of your AI friends, DeepSeek or ChatGPT, of Professor Fred Hicklin's research on personality disorders in Jamaica and his conclusions. And one of the things I was saying earlier is that traffic accidents in Jamaica cannot only be, because it's getting worse and worse every year, the numbers are going up, and not only are they going up, but the traffic accidents, are the carnage, this is getting worse every year, the kinds of accidents, the amount of vehicles involved, the ages of the people who are driving and so on. Really gory on our roads. And part of this has to do, I think, with what Professor Fred Hicklin was pointing us toward, which is that there is a problem unusual in any country, and it was being seen in Jamaica, researched, and he drew conclusions. He was in this studio. He came to Oturias, sat in the studio with me, and discussed that paper on more than one program, actually. And I remember him talking about personality disorders that include grandiosity and inflated self-importance, the need for admiration and a lack of empathy for others, which reading as narcissistic personality disorder. We're not talking about narcissism now, as you know, the Greek legend narcissism. We're talking about, there's a difference between narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. So let's get this right. So there's a lot of narcissism around us. But when narcissism becomes a personality disorder, that's a whole different kettle of tea. So we see on the roads in Jamaica, the narcissistic personality disorder being played out, the aggressive overtaking, the refusal to yield to let others pass. We're seeing the speeding on the roads. And when you see that, I know I'm in vehicles a lot when witnessing this speeding, and all the time a conversation is in the vehicle really boils down to, we think this person is asserting dominance or superiority. And when you have all of these together, the disregard for traffic rules, so many of our drivers think that the rules are beneath them or that it's limiting their autonomy. We see the road rage. Road rage has increased in Jamaica exponentially. Road rage is, I've never in my entire life seen road rage as I'm seeing it now in Jamaica. And It's triggered by any little thing. If they perceive that you slight them or you disrespect them, or if you're honked at, remember, you blow your horn and if you're a nurse in uniform, you can get beaten. You can get dragged out of your car and beaten. This is the kind of stuff that we're seeing, the kind of, within a context where already we have this badness mentality. We celebrate badness on this island. And this badness it's culturally reinforced, through the music, through the songs, through the plays, through how we talk to each other. Culturally reinforced. So it's no wonder that we're seeing more traffic accidents. That is as if no one is taking note of any of the warnings of doing speed on the road, etc. We must look to personality disorder as one of the problems that must be dealt with. I think I'm going to go through Professor Hicklin's research again. I promise to do that because he, as I said, he pointed to personality disorders as being an epidemic in Jamaica. And that's many years ago. Can you imagine where we are now? People are manipulative. They're calculating and deceptive. They're focused on self-interest above anything else. And we see this playing out on the roads. Machiavellianism, narcissistic personality disorder, sociopathy. And this is not from the top of my head. This is from the research. This is Professor Fred Hicklin, who was head of an entire mental department, mental health department at the University of the West Indies. This is his research. And as I said earlier, this research done, we're looking at probably 7 years. No, it's more than 7 years when he was in the studio. So I'll go check again. But just to remind you, go right ahead. Put that in Google, if you will. Put it in DeepSeek. Put it in ChatGPT. You'll find it. Professor Fred Hicklin's research on mental health in Jamaica. Or, for better, because he's done a lot of research on mental health, personality disorders. It's something that we have not been paying attention to. So once again, how do we manage the amount of traffic accidents we're seeing on the roads in Jamaica? Well, we've tried a whole lot of things and them not working, obviously. So now let us look at the mental health of the drivers. And if push comes to shove, if we really want to change this, then maybe, just maybe, we're going to have to, when you go for your license, you have to get a personality disorders check. I don't know how that's going to work. It sounds like it's a dystopic kind of solution. But what do we do? What do we do? We're in dystopia. That's where we are now. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. As I said before, what I'm going to do is go back to Professor Fred Hickling's research and kind of walk through it. He had 2 core researchers, I think, and they're still around. Dr. Walcott is one, so we'll probably reach out to Dr. Walcott to come and talk to us again about this. All right, a quick break and we go to my very special guest who is in the studio already. Everything. And decide to have a whole conversation, a pre-interview before the interview. Anyway, so we're going to go into the next segment of my program. As you know, IRIA FM is celebrating 35 years. 35 years of being number one. 35 years of a paradigm shift in media, 35 years of disruptive innovation. That's what IRIA FM is, and that's why it's so hard to beat IRIA FM, because it is disruptive innovation, and it continues to be. So, still number one from the day we came on air in July 1990 until today. And my very special guest in studio this morning to talk a little bit about the 35 years that she's been here, 35 or 32. Anyway, she's there a long time, is the IRFM's news director, Natalie Campbell, in studio with me. Good morning, Nats. How you doing?
Good morning, Kabu.
Look here now, you sound like you just wake up. You want a bottle of water, Nats?
That's been nice.
Well, turn off the mic and come, because this is Jerry. Jerry's coming in studio, and that is Jerry Water. So yes, when you drink Jerry Water, please to return Jerry Water. All right, let me turn off the mic. 2 minutes after 7 o'clock, you're inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running Africa. And by the way, Natalie's no stranger to this program, to this time of morning. She just forgot for a minute that you have to get up to be here, to be ready for on air on 7. You have to get up from 3. And this is what you forgot, right, Nat?
True.
Because we're going to start in the middle. And as I said, you're no stranger to this slot here. I was listening to a rebroadcast of an interview I did with Clyde Mackenzie, and he talked a bit about you coming in, and I realized that I cut him off when he started talking about your work on the Africa Forum.
Yes. I was going to say that for those who have been listening from day one would know that this is part of my training ground when I actually came.
True.
Yes, because I used to do Let's Travel Africa,
right,
which was the profile on the African countries.
Right, and I think you've done all 50-odd African
Very
countries.
likely.
Yes.
And then there was News
African, yes.
Right, and then after, whenever you went on your Africa tours,
right,
I hosted with Mr. Mackenzie, and then I became part of the duo of Brother Miguel and Sister Natalie.
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
So you're right that this is a training ground. Welcome back. But I remember, Natalie, this was fun because when we came up with the idea of about what, 16?
Yeah, probably.
Probably about each African country.
Right.
So every week we take one. Tell me about it. Remind us.
So what it was, we chose a country and we did a profile on it, really. Mm-hmm. So let's say Kenya, capital Nairobi, who's the current president, what population, what Kenya is known for, and all of that. Just really to introduce the countries and Africa
to an audience, because at that time, we didn't really have internet like we have now.
No, definitely not.
So where you used to get the information from?
I think the old-fashioned way. We use books.
Yes.
We had
made
like
telephone calls.
Right. You know, we had like BBC and VOA at the time. So whatever information you could glean about, there might have been the early internet.
And then we had to go through and rewrite things because they were talking in the colonizer's voice.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure, say, whenever they're talking. That was such a challenge, wasn't it? No, for me, listen, I was editing the thing. I was editing, don't arm me. And if something slipped through, I would say, Nat, we don't want for them voice.
Yes, that's
Let's
true.
use
that
our
is true.
voice.
Yes, it's
you know.
true.
But that was such fun. And then News African. One of the challenges I know was pronouncing the names, right?
Yeah.
And News Africa. But you got them all, though.
We did try.
Yeah. So and later on, as you said, with Mr. Mackenzie, I remember when Princess Diana died. I was in Ghana, and you were here. You told me, I don't remember that. So I called in to do the link on the program, and you said, "What a thingy!" And I said, "What?" No, it's very interesting because we in Ghana. And that Ghana never cared at that moment because, well, they cared, but probably much later on in the day. And they were so far ahead too. But they didn't report until late. It's when I called in at about 6:01, you said, "What a thingy." And I said, "What a wish thing." And you said, "Princess Diana is dead." And I said, "What?" So we had to kind of rework the program in a way to kind of include that. But it was you in studio who gave me that information. So Mr. Mackenzie gave us a nice little story because as much as me know you from a long time, I never know that. I remember when you came in, I was in the newsroom. And I remember when you came in the newsroom.
Yeah.
But me never know, sir, so you come. Where you go to Mr. Mackenzie say that?
Well, look, Nicholas was telling me that. So I didn't hear the rebroadcast, but Nicholas was... But here's what I remember.
Yes. I hope Mr. Mackenzie is listening. This is what Natalie remembers.
So I remember at about grade 11,
You sure say 11 or 10?
No, man, I grade 11.
Okay.
So it was grade 11.
Okay.
And I met this lady, and we were having a conversation. So she said, what is it you want to do? And I'm saying, I want to be a journalist and all of that. And then she said to me, you know what? I know the general manager at IRFM now. Go talk to him.
Okay.
Yes. So I think I might have written an application letter or something. I don't quite remember all the details as to how I was checking on it or something, and I happened.
I think you wrote before, because I knew there was a student coming in from your castle. So there's some connection that was there. I don't know if it was, right.
So what happened now was when I eventually got here and went in for the interview with him. And Kabu, I tell you, there are two people there. I knew I was coming to Mr. Mackenzie, and he was a general manager.
Right.
And of course, I said, this man in a jeans, pants, and crepe. And I don't know who this man is, but I do business with this man.
Right.
Because I go into the general manager, of course.
And that could not be the general manager. I couldn't even be the chairman.
Look here.
Be the owner.
Look here. Is afterwards realized that was the big man.
That was a big man, yeah. And he took pleasure in that, you know.
Here.
He took so much pleasure in people not being able to
recognize him up front. So when I went into Mr. Mackenzie...
That's Carl Young we're talking about.
Yes, Carl Young. So we went into Mr. Mackenzie's office, and he said, fill out the form. Or maybe one of the secretaries or somebody gave me a form to fill out. Yeah. And then I gave it to him, and he started to laugh. So I'm like, Mr. Mackenzie, why are you laughing? He says, because this looked like I filled it out myself. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, we're both born March 14.
Right.
We both love Spanish, because at the time I got a distinction in Spanish at CXE.
Yes.
So he was saying a lot of the stuff on the paper looked like things he would have put on his. So
he was projecting. It's actually him telling you that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I just saw him laughing and asking, why was he laughing? Right. And he said, well, we share the same birth date of March 14, and the Spanish thing, and later I realized he was very fluent in Spanish.
Oh, yeah, he was. But listen, he is. But listen on that, because it's interesting, because I know that even to this day, you call each other on your birthdays, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Well, good for you both. Good for you both.
So, I mean, some years, depending on where I'm at, we might not get, but I'll say, Big A, you talk to Mr. Mackenzie, make sure you tell me some happy birthday. You know? So, we have kept in touch that over time. So, yes, and to tell you this too, so I remember when he eventually saw that it was serious, he said, all right, go get me some stories. And I go home and I make up some stories.
Oh, you made them up?
Made them up. So I came back and I gave it to him, and he said, looked at it, and he looked at me and said, where did you get these? I said, I made them up. He says, well, guess what? From what you have written, I see that you understand what news is. Now go get me some real stories. Right. And you don't want to see me through Otres trying to find real stories.
Did you find any?
Yes, and I came back. That was so long ago.
You should remember your first story now.
Well, this was not for air. That was just for him testing me.
But you remember.
And he got out his reading pen, and you swear I was at school.
Oh, he was editing.
Right, marking paper and correcting this and correcting that. And after a few maybe months or weeks of doing this, he said, all right, time to go upstairs. So all of this time I'm coming, whether from school or wherever, going downstairs to his office. To right. I'm not upstairs yet. Right. So it was about the December that I got upstairs, and that's how I met you, Judith, Devon. I don't remember who else might have been in the newsroom at the time, but yeah, that's how I got upstairs.
No, I do remember the little girl who came in our York Castle uniform. And was interested in doing news, and we did put you to work. It wasn't a joke business.
Yes, as a matter of fact, and I don't know if you remember this. Do you know that you were the one that got me on air? You remember that story?
I remember the story. You should tell the story. I almost got fired for it. I got a letter. I think the first letter I got on my file was for insubordination.
Really?
Yes, because I didn't ask.
Oh, well.
So I got a letter for insubordination. It was on my file for years.
Really? Well, what happened? I was here. I think by this now, I'd finished grade 11. I was going to COMC doing my A-levels. So I'd come after school, weekends, and holidays, and so on. So I remember one day you decided I was to read the 245. And I'm saying, but I'm not ready.
And you were ready.
I'm not ready. I can't do it. And Kabu, I came downstairs and I hid out in the bathroom.
But I knew you were ready though, now, because you were in the newsroom for a good while.
I was doing.
You were reading.
Right.
Yes, you were on my
doing
program.
recorded stuff, right?
But you were on my program doing these, a Sunday morning program. So it was, to me, it's the same thing. It's the same microphone. It's just a different day. You know. So you came. What did you do after you hiding at the bathroom?
So I was in the bathroom. So about 2:40, 2:43, I'm like, all right, Andrea. But at the time, Andrea was, must be in the studio by this because it's news time. So I come out, am I not on air? Why am I not in the studio? So I recognized at that point that you were serious, and I had to go down the step.
Yeah.
Me and Mr. Young going up the stairs, and it was like, and I came and I struck this in, and you said to him, Mr. Young, she can do it. She has a good voice. I think it said something like she has a good voice.
Yes,
she can read it, and I know she'll manage or something along that line. And you said, all right. And
I was okay, but Mr. McKenzie write me. Mr. McKenzie write me because he called me separately to say, who, da. But this is how we were all, for the most part. I mean, can I just put on air? Because that happened to me at Radio Northeast, JBC, where you're going, it was similar to you though, just going to Connie Witter, say I want to read the news, and she give me the news and say a news time, go read it. and it was okay. At the end of the day. But that's, so you always wanted to be a journalist?
Yeah, I was thinking, just in thinking about this interview, I was thinking back. And I think I remember maybe about grade 3 or grade 4 at primary school that when I wrote my options list, career options, I had reporter on it. And to this day, I can't say to you that it's because of X or Y. It just came out of me that I needed to be a reporter. And I remember when I was young too, and, in the country, holiday go country with the family. And I remember at that point I became NNC radio station. And then
that is one. What they call it? Just
no, my initials.
I know. Also, you became that.
Right, in our play at home.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to grade 9, I remember I was talking to my English teacher, Miss Williams, and she was saying, Natalie, what do you want to do? I said, journalism, but something about newspaper. And she said, no, journalists are at radio, TV, magazines, and so on. Right. And then that became a dilemma because I'm thinking, but all the radio and TV stations I know are in Kingston and I'm in St. Anne. And those days, your parents are going to just ship you off to Kingston. So when I landed, so I was now pondering, how do I get to be a journalist when journalism is in Kingston? And then, of course, I landed literally in my back door.
Right, and for you, and you made it right through the doors of IRFM. What year did you come in?
All right, I'm thinking grade 11, so that might have been 1991-ish, the ending of grade 11.
Yeah, it was pretty early because we were on 1990. We started broadcasting in 1990, and you came in right after that.
Yeah.
It was pretty early when you came. And you said Judith Bartley was in newsroom when you came?
Yes, and so while you put me on air first, I think Judith, I don't know if I've ever told her, was that person that made me think, radio. I remember it was I think they were playing a staff party one December. And Judith was over there blowing balloon, putting up decoration, all of the above. So Judith is not dressed for work. And I think you might have given me the newscast to say, give this to Judith when she comes over. I was call her or something. So Jeanette rushed over from Great House and just run into the studio and just read the news. And I'm like, my God, anybody listening swear that Judith in a one 3-piece suit, tile shoes, and not seeing how she...
But she a sample with that though,
Look here.
I mean, she get the news like a minute... Well, you can give it to her after she says, I'm Judith Bartley. And she'll be sitting not on the chair, but on the desk, on the microphone up to her. And she just read it.
And you never know. And that sent me... And remember, I was saying at the time, because remember I'm like 16 or thereabouts, I'm saying, whoa, no, but you can't hide behind the mic, man. You can't hide behind the mic. I'm a teenager at this point.
She's been here sometime during your tenure here, Nat. You went off to university.
Right.
And I came back.
And came back, yes.
Right. So, and that was at Karamak.
Karamak, yes.
And you came back to IRFM.
That's
Congratulations
correct.
on that. That was brilliant. And over time, so you've moved from... Give us your journey through the newsroom.
All right, so pretty much I was just somebody who came in on the weekend, student actually, because I was doing my A-levels at the time. And when I was done, I applied fully to be a full-time staffer. So I was just being a young reporter, learning the ropes, understanding how the newsroom operated, and over time, I really recognized that journalism was my passion. So I loved it, I understood it, and grew in it, and the various editors and senior persons to me at the time really did spend the time to teach me and direct me. And as I went through the process and eventually, as you said, went off to university and came back and worked the system, and then I became assistant news editor to Mr. McKnight, and then when he left, I became the head of the news team.
Mm-hmm. And you've been head of news for how long now?
I think from 2015.
Oh, it's a good while now.
Yeah, I think it was
that's
2015, yes.
And talk to us about the changes that you've seen, because we're talking about 35 years, and I was 34 and a half, but 1991, we started 1990 in mid-1990s, July, and you're coming in by early. Well, it was early 1991 or towards the mid of 1991?
I'd say the mid of it.
Yeah, just a few months. Talk to us about the changes that you've seen in journalism generally, in the tools and the resources, and just the trajectory over time.
When I came, we were at the cart machine stage.
Well, there you go. So it was splicing and editing.
Right, reel to reels, right. And of course,
You could splice?
No, sir.
You never learned?
No, I didn't
shame
go to
on
studio.
you. Yeah.
We had cassette and mini cassette. That's what we used as reporters. The mini cassette players.
The mini disc? Or mini cassette?
The mini cassette and the regular cassette.
And the regular. Yes.
Yes, we used to have those going on assignments.
Right,
you come back and...
But they were state of the art.
Yeah.
We had the best.
Because we even had the Marans at the time. And eventually it was a digital Marans.
Yes.
Right.
And we were so proud of the Marans because we carried it over our shoulders. Yeah. When we walked with the Marans, we were somebody.
So, and so I remember how we were having to scrub the cards to make sure that the previous audio was off.
Oh, people were scrubbing the cards?
Yeah, the news cards.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, man, you put a clip on the cards, and then like tomorrow you wanted to put a different story, you put them, rub it on the machine.
Oh, yes, so not like a magnetic thing.
Right, and clear the cards off. And then I think we moved now to, then we had mini disc, we had the DAT, we had...
the DAT was a big deal.
Yes,
that was expensive.
We were, let's see, mini disc DAT.
So we have hold on, cart and reel together.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved to mini cassette
and the regular cassette. Because when I came, we stacks of cassettes all over the place.
Yes. And then from that to mini disc.
I think we went to mini discs, right? And then there was a DAT machine somewhere in the process.
Oh, that was before the mini disc.
That was before.
Yes.
All right.
DAT, then mini disc.
Wow.
What's a lot of people don't have a clue what we're talking about. But just know that it was state of the art, top of the line. Resources that we were using, tools and equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
your Marans was a thing at the time, you know.
I'm
and
telling you.
I remember now when it went from the to the digital Marans. I remember there was a digital version of it. I remember that somewhere along the way.
And it was smaller too.
Yes.
And the digital Marans and the mini discs were around at the same time, I think. Because I remember I carried a Marans to England. And then when I went...
And you could hook your mic in it, the whole thing.
Good. Yeah.
Right, so went through that, and eventually, as time progressed, we got things became digital.
Right.
So we eventually moved now to editing and so on the computer.
Right.
On the computer.
So we're using. So Natalie, you've been there, seeing the movement of how we do journalism. All right. So with all the equipment, what changed in terms of how we were able to get news? I'm talking about IRFM.
Oh, we have to mention the fax machine, you know, because when the GIS releases used to come through under a fax machine, a whole
reel.
Yeah. So back in the day, we had correspondence across the island, and they would call in because call in. No, we don't call in anymore.
And they're calling on analog phone.
Yes.
So
they'd call in and you hook them up to the Marans.
Right.
And do the recording and, of course, then if editing and so on, if you're doing interviews.
Yes.
That was it. We had some kind of cables, but, crack them good. Wisdom and the engineering.
It was well said, even though it was so archaic. It's all analog.
But you can't even say archaic like that, because at the time it was the thing. It was the thing, right? So we'd get, I think there's something like a telephone cable that we'd stick into the Marans.
Right.
So we'd get the audio in.
It's input and output. Input and output. ACDC.
So we get that, do the interviews, put them on air.
Right.
right? And we would do recordings over phone. I remember when we had David Banks and he would call in from Kingston.
Right.
You have voice the reports over the phone too,
Yes.
and we edited that, put it on air. And then too, I think as time progressed and different editors came, they added their own style and interest. Because I remember by the time Jerry Limonius came,
Yes.
we stepped it up another notch too.
Not hold for me. I'm happy you're the person in studio because I know that my guest just come in just a little bit early, and so I want to say Professor Matthew Smith, I think, is online. Prof, hold the line for me. I'm coming to you in just 30 seconds, just wrapping up this interview. All right. So we move from
Analog
to digital, and that was you actually witnessed all of that, and now we are at AI. I suppose it's a whole different kettle of tea.
Oh gosh, because social media plays now such an important role in journalism. So even as I said before, we were calling people on the telephone. No, somebody just WhatsApp your voice note. You literally could do your interview on your cell phone, getting information on your cell phone. Because even like now we have like a WhatsApp group, so everybody just whenever they have a store, just put it in there. So you don't even have to talk to the people anymore. They just WhatsApping the thing or emailing the information. So that has changed. Of course, the internet too has grown, and you mentioned AI. So information is just there, easier to access. I think you still have to do your research and so on, but easier to access.
Verify. Yeah, you still have to verify, but much easier to access. And Natalie, just quickly, in 30 seconds. Do you see where we are now with the trajectory? We're talking about 35 years of IRI, 35 years of radio for you. How human resources will be affected or by where the technology is at now? Or do you see newsrooms still standing strong with human resources as we have them now?
I think there's going to be a change. I think there's going to be a change. It just depends on how quickly a particular entity moves with the change. But at some point, with how the technology is being developed, I don't see a standing still. But I still think there'll be a place for the individual. There might be fewer people, but there definitely will still be a role because things still have to be verified. Things still have to be questioned.
Right.
And so that people still need to voice their opinions and give. So the human element can't be taken out in totality. But there are going to be aspects of operations where it's just computerized, but somebody has to still put it in the computer, input the information. So
I think it's phenomenal that you've witnessed it up to now at your young age, that you've seen it all, and it's because you got in there as a child. So Natalie Campbell, IRFM's news director, thank you so much, Nat. It's good to have you on a Sunday morning again. We need to do this more often. All right. 35 years of IRI, and the big celebration kicks off on August 1 at Kaya Herb House, and then August 31 in St. Elizabeth. So stand by for that. We'll be all there. You going to be at Kaya?
I'm not sure yet. I'm actually not sure yet, depending on what's going on. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Nat. Natalie Campbell there. A quick break, and then we go to my very special guest online. I do have my guest online, right? All right. Okay. Go back to my break, but let me just introduce my next guest who is online, Professor Matthew J. Smith, Professor of History and Director of the Center for the Study of Legacies of British Slavery at University College London. Professor Smith worked at the University of the West Indies, Mona, where he was Professor of Caribbean History. He has special interest in the 19th and 20th century histories of Haiti and Jamaica. And this is how he's widely known in Jamaica, so you're going to be surprised to hear what we'll be talking about when he comes on. He has published widely on Caribbean history with over 50 scholarly articles. Among his publications are Liberty, Fraternity, Exile, Haiti and Jamaica After Emancipation, a comparative study which explored the post-slavery intersections between the two Caribbean neighbors with a focus on overlapping narratives and shared migration histories. So much more about Professor Matthew Smith, and you'll hear as we go along this morning. Professor Smith, welcome to the Africa Forum. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good thanks, and good morning, Kabu, and to all your listeners on IRIS, and it's a real pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me on.
All right. I'm going to ask you to hold just a sec for me as I go back to my commercial break segment, but Smith, for holding the line for us. We really appreciate your patience this morning. Port Royal, we're going to be talking about Port Royal and the research that is being done there, has been done there by Professor Matthew Smith, and so much more. You would have heard that the UNESCO has added a second heritage site in Jamaica, and that is news that came out of the Jamaica Tourist Board, that Port Royal, one of the oldest and most historic regions in the country, and they underscore that Port Royal is known for its role as a home for pirates and its place in the transatlantic trade, trade in Africans, beginning in the 17th century, including its history as a hub for slave trading. And now we are being told that it is UNESCO has designated this a second World Heritage Site. Well, Professor Smith and his team have been doing quite a bit of research on Port Royal and also on slavery in that area of Jamaica, which I think is phenomenal. Professor Smith, can you take us to the beginning? What inspired the research, but also you're now launching New World Royalists? I think you've already launched that, the project. How did it came to be housed at the Center for the Study of the Legacies of British Slavery at UCL?
Sure, thanks for that, Kabu. I should start by saying a little bit about just generally what the Centre does, and then I'll go into how the Port Royal project that we've worked on fits into it. So the Centre started out of a project that going all the way back to 2008 called Legacies of British Slave Ownership, which was really focused on trying to highlight how much transatlantic slavery impacted on the profit and wealth of Britain. And it may not surprise you or your listeners to know that in Britain, where I am at the moment in London, there is a great disparity in how they remember and acknowledge this country's history and implication in transatlantic slavery. The memory tends to be one that celebrates abolition rather than the heavy investment and heavy wealth that Britain made, both from slavery but also from colonialism, of course, in the Caribbean and other parts of the British Empire. And so that project sought to correct that, that discrepancy and show in very whole and real ways, with a lot of evidence, the way in which the exact figures, really, that Britain benefited from transatlantic slavery. And it took as its main focus the £20 million that were paid to slave owners at emancipation for loss of property. Now, one of the things about the Abolition Act that Britain passed in 1833 was that it was an incredibly, it's an act that is often celebrated as a victory and a triumph of British liberalism in terms of ending slavery, but it was also an act that recognized dehumanization because it sought to give the planters financial compensation, essentially reparation for the planters for the loss of their human property. So you see immediately this was birthed in a notion of superiority still, and that's quite blunt and very true. So that project made it very clear in unmistakable ways through a tremendous amount of evidence showing who received which amounts for compensation and where that money went and was reinvested.
Yes.
Now, that has changed the discourse in not only in Britain, but I would say other parts of the world when you think about the connections between Britain and slavery. And that has opened up a whole new way of thinking about that. So you can't dodge the question anymore. And in many ways, some of the things that we've been seeing, especially in the past 5 years, where you have from insurance companies to beverage companies to universities in Britain acknowledging publicly their benefit from slavery. A lot of that is because of the work that was done by this initial project. They can't hide. It's right there. It's on a database. It's been used by 3 million users who can go on and see the exact figures.
Yes.
Now, what we've been working on since that went live, but particularly in the past 4 years, has been to shift the focus from the enslavers to the enslaved persons. Because that's what has been missing from a lot of the discussion and the dialogue.
Yes.
And so with that in mind, we devised a project where me and the team that works with me here in London, where we wanted to find a way to highlight the lives of the persons who were enslaved and to show that it was not the story and legacy of British slavery. It's not just the story of the wealth of Britain, but it's also the story of the underdevelopment of the Caribbean, and that can't be left out. So once estates, thriving estates that were producing sugar and coffee, after slavery ended, they were not given any support. Freedom from slavery came, but people were not treated equally, and we know that story very deeply in Jamaica. They were not given land access, they're not given political rights, they're not given civil rights. And so what we want to do is to really shift the lens of focus in a way that emphasizes what we see as a real story, the story of enslaved persons and the legacies that they've endured. And that brought us now to think about how we can do that. And we started with Port Royal because a lot of people don't know, Kabu, that Port Royal, before it was a town, was, as we know it today, was a parish. The whole parish of Port Royal extended up into part of what we call the St. Andrew Mountains today. All of that was Port Royal, part of the jurisdiction of Port Royal up to 1867, which is when the map of Jamaica and the parish boundaries were redrawn and redrafted. So we had 22 parishes before, then it became 14 after 1867. So during the period of slavery, Port Royal was an important part of the island of Jamaica. A lot of coffee plantations were in what was the parish of Port Royal at the time. And there's a big way in which that part that you just mentioned, that Port Royal's connection and place in transatlantic slavery as a major space where a lot of Africans arrived and were sold into slavery. That is on the mind or on the emphasis. And so we wanted to really focus on it. And that's what we've done. A Newer Royalist is essentially a creation from the
University College London, and we're talking about a particular project, but the information is pretty interesting. The New World Royalist Project is the name of the title of the project, but there's just so much to unpack here that we're going through this with Professor Smith. Talk to us about, because you mentioned how Port Royal being a parish that extended all the way up to St. Andrew and so on, much bigger than this little area that we go now to look at Giddy House. But also, one of the things you underscore, and you do that in the documents that are around the project, that this was a move away from the usual thing we talk about Port Royal. And we see this even in the documentation coming from the tourism ministry, which is to say pirates were there and Henry Morgan and so on and so forth. You're kind of refocusing Port Royal as an area where slavery, the enslavement of Africans, went on for years, for hundreds of years.
That's right. And I think that's the part of the history that is not often discussed or presented in the way it should be. And this is not to necessarily minimize the other aspects of Port Royal's history, from the fort to everything we know about Port Royal today, but this is a fundamental part of that history as well. And so what we sought to do with Newer Royalists is to highlight that. How do you write that history, not only of Port Royal, but of slaves in Jamaica, in which the center of the story are enslaved Africans and their descendants, and the other parts of it, the other features of Port Royal prior to British colonialism, or even looking at the history of slavery through the words and focus on the enslavers. Suppose you put all of that on the periphery and you focus the core on how people lived and survived through enslavement in Port Royal, you get a very different picture. And in many ways that we argue, it opens up a way in which Jamaicans today can understand those connections of their ancestors in tangible ways. It's not just saying this number of persons worked on that plantation. Who were each of those persons? Can we find out where you trace them back to Africa? Can we find out who their descendants are? And those are the three questions we had in mind. And to answer those questions, we had to go into a very rigorous study. It's taken us 3 years, Kabu, to get this project together and finally out in public. And so what we did is that we looked at the registers of enslaved persons, which are filed every 3 years for Jamaica from 1817 to 1832. And we looked at all the figures for Port Royal. So in Port Royal, you had a total population of enslaved persons of around 6,400, roughly. And so we identified each of them, and we took those registers and turned them, rather than being what they were initially intended to be, which was essentially inventory of human property owned by each person. But if you take away that oppressive mechanism of its purpose and use the technology we have today to take those bits and pieces, those very fine details of individuals, who were they, who were their children, those sorts of details, and turn it into something like a census record of the last generation of Africans brought to Jamaica, it could open up new information for us, and that's exactly what we did.
All right, talk to us about that history, what you found. I know that the database is there and that it will be launched. I'm not sure if it's launched yet, but give us an idea of what you found in terms of how our ancestors lived in Port Royal, and the questions. Well, obviously, talk about the questions that you entered into the research with, how you answered those questions, and just generally, what did you find?
Sure. I mean, the first thing that we did was to start to look at, once we've converted all of what I've just said into some form of census, you start to look at it and treat it now as a census record, from which you can now start to find connections. Once you have that, you start to look at other sources. You triangulate it with other sources. So you look at anything from newspapers to accounts of planters, anything you can find. We use parish registers a lot. And from that, we could start to get certain details of persons. And one of the moving details that we found was of two sisters who are the opening story. Newer Royalists, 3 stories that we tell over the course of that cycle. The first story is of 2 sisters, Amy and Sue. And they were arrested and put in, as for being considered what was then called runaways, and put in a prison in the women's jail in Port Royal, in the town. And then when we looked at the details of their record, the listing of them in prison, which was from the Gazette, we could then take those pieces of information, connect it to what we've done for the estate that they came from, which was Windsor Lodge. And so we looked at the fact that the Windsor Lodge was a plantation. And what we did was look at the Windsor Lodge registers, find them, find their connections, and build out a family tree from that to show the last member of their family to leave Africa in the 1760s to come to Jamaica as an unfree worker, and connect that thread all the way to these 2 sisters, Sue and Amy, who are locked up. So the whole idea is that you start by approaching, if you look at the website, that you approach Port Royal in a way that's very familiar to many of us when we see the pictures of Port Royal. But as you look at the layout in the 19th century of the town, the church, the naval hospital, all of those things, what would happen if you start to see or realize that there's an African woman in a prison with other women in her cell, and that is a different Port Royal. That is a reflection of the reality of how the majority of the people in Port Royal were living. And that's how we start. And then we start to then think about her journey. How did Sue end up in that prison from Windsor Lodge? So if you think about where Windsor Lodge is in relation to the town of Port Royal, you have to think about the journey she had to take to escape from that estate to find her way there.
Yes.
And then you start to backtrack, and then that takes you deeper into the mountains of Port Royal, and it opens up a window into seeing how people like Amy and Sue and thousands of others survived and lived through slavery in Port Royal.
And Port Royal, predominantly, as you said earlier, a coffee plantation?
But there are many, many coffee plantations up in the mountain of Port Royal. Yes, a lot of them. And so one of the big key elements of our story, which we found, was Blocksburg, which is a community way up in the hills of what was then Port Royal Parish, but now is part of the parish of St. Andrew. And this was one of the big coffee producers in the early 19th century after the Haitian Revolution. And now that history is not emphasized. That history of what Bloxburg was is not emphasized. In fact, most Jamaicans, and I confess I was the same way too, don't know about Bloxburg, that it even exists.
Yeah, and hang on for me, Puff.
Yeah,
so this is Bloxborough, because I before your research, I've never heard that place name, but it's a place name in Jamaica that exists today, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's just if you go in, for those of you, if you go on the St. Thomas Road, passing Bull Bay, and then you turn somewhere by Cane River, then Cane River Falls, and go way up, that's Bloxburg up there.
Bloxborough.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I'm from a community in St. Mary called Marlborough. When I say I'm from Marlborough, a lot of people don't know that community. But it tells you, the names of the places speak to the history of the place and the extent to which slavery overran this country, what the enslavers did. So Bloxborough. So tell us about Bloxborough.
Sure. Bloxburg was a community that was formed in the late 18th century, first as a sugar plantation, and then after the Haitian Revolution, which really ruptures the production in what became Haiti of coffee as well as sugar. Nearby islands started to see how they could benefit from that loss in the international market of sugar and coffee coming from the French colony. And so the person who owned Bloxburg was a German man named Kellerman. And Kellerman decided to turn the land of Bloxburg into coffee plantations. And that's how it started to develop when it was profitable, it was as a coffee plantation. So that was very important for us to start to figure out where it's located geographically and what's the story there. And then we started to move from that into understanding the experiences of the enslaved people who worked on that estate. Mm-hmm. And so we did a very deep survey looking at any record we could find from that period, from the late 18th century into the 19th century, that references Bloxburg, and we found quite a few. And from that, we were able to develop a profile of the whole community of Bloxburg at the time. Mm-hmm. How many men, women, children lived there, what the rate of death was, what the rate of running away was, manumission, all of those things we could do with how we were developing this project. Mm-hmm. And so the Newer Royalists really has as its centerpiece a story of a community during and after slavery. And today, Bloxburg is a very proud community of farmers who live there, visited and spent time with some of them up there in Bloxburg. And that history is important because that's part of the foundation of the place, but it's also a reflection of a part of this story of slavery in Port Royal that we don't talk about. Mm-hmm. What happened to this place? Why don't we see it on the map of Jamaica? And how do people live through that experience?
Mm-hmm. So what do we know? And you've told us a little of Bloxborough itself, the estate under Kellerman's ownership, its scale, the labor force, the economic role it played in the Port Royal region at the time. Because my understanding from your research is that this Kellerman was a demon in human body.
Brutal man, very brutal. Both he and his son. And the son turned out to be worse than the father. They were really, really terrible people in terms of their violence. It was a place of great brutality. And we found a testimony from a man who was an accountant at Bloxburg who described how bad it was in terms of the violence that the Kellermans meted out on the enslaved people there. We also found that Kellerman was mixed up, it seems to us, in some forms of it's almost like their cult. I mean, this was a German man who came to Jamaica. He named the estate after a place in the Bavarian mountains. So Bloxburg is a German name. As is, those of you who know the area, Halberstadt, just below, also a German name, which is where you have a quarry today. So that was really fascinating to us to understand what they were doing up there, how that impacted the fate of the plantation. The plantation was run down. They were not good money. They were spendthrifts. They didn't manage it well. Eventually, it was taken over by a company in Liverpool. who were the ones who received the compensation when emancipation arrived. And we're able, from those details, which we're able to reconstruct in the research, start to now use that as a frame to understand a little bit more how people lived in Bloxburg. And we found at the National Library of Jamaica, and we're very grateful to the NLJ for their help with this, a list of the jobbers of Bloxburg. So these are people in Bloxburg who, in 1848, this is a generation, this is a decade now after full freedom in 1838, who were working as essentially task workers on the property. But we had their names, and we could take that information from their names, run it through what we're developing with the mechanism for our database, and connect it to the registers, and from there connect it all the way back to Africa. So we're able to show their lineage from Africa all the way down to the present, which was quite remarkable for us and a great find. Yeah. And it was very powerful.
I just came back a few days ago, last 2 days, from Hazard and up in those areas of Carronall, Hazard, Decoy, searching for my ancestors, searching for my people. And this story coming out of Bloxburg, that's fascinating, Matt Smith. Tell us some more about that you were able to do this ancestral trace all the way back to the continent of Africa?
We were, yes, and we're able to do it through the register. So what helped us, in brief, I'll just say a bit for you, Kabu, to understand how we connected it.
Yes.
So in the record keeping that we have in Jamaica of enslaved persons, there's a lot of detail for the period of the register, which is 1817 to 1832. Then we sort of lose names after that, because we don't have a census in Jamaica till the 1840s, and even then it's not a detailed census that we have today. So it's difficult, very, very difficult to connect people of the present to the past.
Yes.
But if you keep digging, and if you keep looking with a wide-eyed view of the records, you may find something that opens a portal to do that. And that's what we found with that jobless list from 1848. But now we had names that were a series. Not everybody listed, obviously not everybody in Bloxburg, but it was a significant number that could allow us to do that kind of work. Now that we had that, we could take those names, go back to the last register, so those names are from 1848, go back to the 1832, find the names of those persons in 1832. And if you say, for instance, this person named John Reed is listed in 1848, we go and we find out John Reed in 1832, then we can find from there who was John Reed's mother. Then you go back and find her story, and you keep going back and you make those connections further back to the relative of the mother who was first listed as an African, and then that makes the connection. It really opens a lot. And what we're doing with this bigger project, so the Newer Royalist is essentially a showcase of what we can do, but our bigger project is called Valuable Lives. With Valuable Lives, and we're going to do that for the entire island of Jamaica. So that story that I just told you, Bloxburg, we're going to replicate it many times over for the story of the whole island of Jamaica, all 22 parishes during the time of slavery, and looking at those details. And from that, a lot can open up. And what I ideally want for this project, Kabu, the Valuable Lives, it's going to take us a few years to get it to that point. But we want it to be done in a way in which it's all there, free and open access to everybody, and you can go on the site and you can find those connections yourself, not only through your individual family lines, if possible, but as I said in Bloxburg, the community story. What is the story of the community that you're from? And its connection to slavery. And that's a really big part of this story.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And in a while, I want you to tell me how we can, maneuver the website, how we can go there, how we can get the information. But first of all, you also found the will of Kellerman, didn't you? And that would have provided a lot of information in terms of how wealth was transferred. What can you tell us about that?
Yes. We did, yes. And that was really sort of going from father to son. And the son was the one, so Jacob was the father. I'm forgetting the name of the son. I think it might have been Joseph right now. And we're able to find how that wealth was transferred from politics. And wills are hugely important to our research. Wills show the legacies of the actual passage of property wealth from one generation to the next. Mm-hmm. It was then we were able to determine that it was under the son's ownership of Bloxburg Plantation that he was run down. He didn't manage money properly, and he lost a lot on it. So that's how that happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In terms of the website now, and I went there myself, and I probably need more tutoring on how to maneuver this. But how can we find this information that you've unearthed here, Port Royal, this entire Port Royal area, the information we're talking about on Kellerman and Bloxburg, and also this brilliant bit of news of being able to trace Africans on the island here in Jamaica all the way back to the continent of Africa?
Well, the website for your listeners is http://www.new-world-royalist.ucl.ac.uk. What we decided to do with the website is to be able to present it in a way that shows the stories I've been talking about in a visual way, in an immersive way, in a respectful way, of first starting with the town of Port Royal, the story of the two sisters, Amy and Sue, then following their journey into the hills and thinking about what this whole advent of what was in the records, Kabu, called mountain slavery, which we often don't think about that term. What was that like? That you have, if anybody knows going up in those mountains, it's some of the most beautiful scenery in the whole island of Jamaica. It's gorgeous scenery, because you can see all the way down from there. Sorry. And we're able to tell that story, which then becomes a bridge to the story of Bloxburg.
Mm-hmm. Along
the way...
Did you say mountain slavery?
That's what it was referred to in some of the records, yes. Mm. So people who were living in the mountains who were property of other people and what they experienced. And we were able then to go into the details of Bloxburg from that, and show how they were, the composition of the society, of the numbers of enslaved persons, how many children, how many men, women, the rate of birth, the rate of death, rate of manumission, all of those things, and make that profile. But along the way, the users who go on the site have two moments in the site where they can stop and look at all the records we've done, because it's really important. It's an educational tool. We want people to see exactly what we did. And we explain every record that we've looked at, the jobbers list that I mentioned before, maps, how we use maps to help us locate these places. All of that you can spend time and go through. Mm-hmm. And we want people to be able to use it in classrooms to show students how you find these stories. And the ultimate goal is really to center these experiences, which have not really been centered before. So you go and you see these names and these individuals, and you see all these records and the connections between them.
Mm-hmm. How can these communities like Bloxburg and Port Royal, because the story is so different, right? For Port Royal, we talk about knowing Port Royal, the wickedest city on earth. The pirates were here without any connection back to this was a space of slavery, enslavement of the blood of our ancestors. That is literally whitewashed, right? How important is this research to refocusing Port Royal as a wider part of an island that was totally enslaved, where people were enslaved?
Yeah, and that's the real shift that we are aiming to achieve with the whole Valuable Lives project. That if you move away from a way of thinking, which unfortunately still exists too dominantly, that there's nothing we can really learn about our ancestors.
But But there's a deliberateness about it, isn't it? There's a deliberateness about it. And we probably need to have a conversation with the Jamaica Tourist Board and the Tourism Ministry, because we see a similar thing in Montego Bay, for example, in Rose Hall, Great House, and so on. That whole thing is whitewash. The entire history is being whitewashed. Trelawney has become also, Falmouth and so on, one of those spaces that is being whitewashed. So there's a danger there, isn't there?
There is a danger. And with Rose Hall, I should also mention a colleague, Celia Naylor, has done a great site on the Rose Hall story called On Silence in Slavery, which is, listeners could visit and see, in which she presents the story of Rose Hall similarly from the perspective of the enslaved. She completely removed the Annie Palmer story and all of that. If you see Rose Hall differently as essentially an oppressive institution, oppressive location where Africans and their descendants were forced into slavery for a long time, it's a different picture. But the bigger point that we're trying to do, Kabu, and I agree with you, I agree that this is about memory, it's about how we are told our past, what we've inherited about that story of our past, and how we need to resist and question that. And we're at the point now, fortunately, where we have more records available digitally. We have more skills and ways to interact with some of that material to now ask new questions of that past and say, look, we can actually prove evidence, as we've been doing with newer royalists, and show you what this was like. We can't, it's not a guesswork thing anymore. We can be much more precise in this day and age than before. And I think collectively that is where we need to be heading, that there are these stories. This is the world that our ancestors were forced. They didn't have a choice. They were forced to live in this world. And now we need to present.
And how can these communities be returned to Jamaicans, the Jamaican communities, in meaningful and reparative ways, if you will? Because it's one thing to unearth it, and we really do like the work that you're doing. But is there a further step for reparative justice once we have unearthed all of these stories?
Well, I do think so. I think, as you know for sure, that reparative justice is a great mission that has many different parts to it. And one of the fundamental parts is this new way of seeing the past. It's repairing how we teach and talk about the past in a way that's unavoidable. You cannot see it. That is our goal. You can't see it with these absences anymore. You have to look at the past in greater detail now with what we're able to show the evidence. And it is supporting this question of reparative justice. And so whether it's people over here where I am now in Britain or in Jamaica or anywhere in the world, you can't run away from it and somehow quantify the lives of human beings in terms of rows and columns and numbers. That these are individual people who lived and breathed and experienced the world in a certain way. And it is our duty in many respects to understand that world better, and that's part of reparative justice.
Yes,
it's not, and that way, if you deepen the lens of it that way, and it's only one part of it, as I say, there are many other parts, but the claims of reparations is strengthened because you're able to see, look, this is the story of a place like Bloxburg and what Bloxburg survived, and the people who are living there today. And I must say, if they're listening, a good among the people from the Bloxburg Citizens Association Benevolent Society, who some of whom I've got to know. And this is part of who they are and how they've arrived at their journey today. And this is really crucial to it. So there's questions of identity, of course, that question of attachment and knowing who you are and where you're from. But if you collect all of this from everywhere in Jamaica and start to look at it, it strengthens the bigger claim for reparations and reparative justice.
Yes. It's great work, and we'd like to see what else will come out of other communities. And when we situate these within the conversations on reparative justice, it really does make a big difference. I hope that we see some movement there. My daughter just finished fifth form, and she did history. None of this came up anywhere, Bloxborough or the work that's been done in Port Royal or anything. So it hasn't permeated the high schools at least yet. But this information is out there. And, nobody's sending them to, if we don't do it ourselves as parents, to the legacies of British slavery's projects, the websites, and so on. So there's a disconnect. What do you think is causing that, responsible for that?
I think it's multiple things. I think part of it is still thinking through how we teach this history. I think that's important. I think we need to teach the history differently. I think too often the history is taught in a way that is too compressed, that this happened and then this other thing happened and let's just move forward. And it's not just the history of slavery, I would say. I would say it's many other histories or chapters in our history that are traumatic. We tend to kind of gloss over things. There's a reason for that. Partly, when I was teaching at UWI Mona, and I would talk to my students about, why did they not want to learn? Because I would have some students who would say to me that the history of slavery is something they don't want to learn anymore. And I say, why is it you don't want to learn it? And they say, it's too painful, it's too horrible, it's not empowering, it doesn't make me feel good. I don't want to go and learn this and leave the classroom feeling depressed or upset. And it's an interesting response, but it's a response that, people have and that you have to respect and try and understand.
But it does go to how history is being taught, because, I could say that of maths. I mean, that's what I said about maths all of my school life. And they still push it on my throat. I mean, I still had to learn it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. But I would also say, Kabu, that the teaching of even what we know, which we are saying is insufficient, we have to understand that has come through after a very long struggle to get that even on the curriculum. Because for a long time, colonial history in Jamaica up to 62, this was not taught at all. We weren't even told, Paul Bogo is not somebody you need to respect. That's somebody you should shun because he's too inspirational for resistance and fighting. So even what people sometimes think is, well, we know enough of that already. We don't respect that even those stories took a long time to get to the point that
I take the point you're making. Aluta continua, Avitora is certain. The struggle continues, but victory is certain. Thank you so much, Professor Matthew Smith. We'll talk to you again because obviously there's so much more to unpack here. At least we've introduced this into the space. Many people, I'm getting texts left, right, and center, so people are hearing about this for the very first time. Remember now, you can go to the website. Once again, give us the website.
Sure. The website is www.new-world-royalist.ucl.ac.uk. I would also urge listeners to check out our website, the Center for the Study of the Legacies of British Slavery, Center for the Study of the Legacies of British Slavery, which you should be able to find easily online. And you can see there not only the newer Royalist project, but another one I'll just quickly flag here, one that we're doing called Black Industrial Revolution. What happens if we look at the Industrial Revolution, not from the perspective of white people in Britain who invented various mechanisms, but the enslaved people in Jamaica whose ingenuity and intellectual contributions actually inspired those inventions. So that's also listed on our website, the Black Industrial Revolution. So check that out. Please, there's an email link there. If anyone has any questions, they could email us. We're happy to connect with people, and I'm always happy to come back on the program in the future if that would be helpful.
All right, and so the email address is at the website, the Center for the Study of the Legacies of
British Slavery. Right. You'll be able to find our email address there. Reach out to us.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Matthew Smith, Professor of History.
My pleasure.
And Director of the Center for the Study of Legacies of British Slavery at University College, London. Thank you so much. 1976 to the early 1980s, asking how the political, social, economic, and CIA, how all of that foment in Jamaica is impacting where we are today. How is that? What kind of impact has that had on us as a people, individually and collectively as a nation in terms of where we are? We're continuing this conversation this morning. Jerry, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, morning, and thank you, Kabu.
Really appreciate your time. We don't take it for granted at all. One of the things that at the end of the discussion last week, so many texts, so many messages came in. We did mention that we should do a part 2, and I'm very happy that you could manage to make it back to Ocho but one of the things we noticed in the conversation with you is that so many different strands coming out of that conversation that it has to be many different parts because we need to focus on each of the different issues and the elements that you raised last week. One of the things that I want to zoom in this week and to kind of wear blinkers like him and a spark on this is to look at the issues you raised around the development or the emergence of garrison communities, how those garrisons came about, who formed them, what was the purpose of these garrisons, and then to move out from there to say, how did these garrisons operate, and what role do the CIA have, if any, or foreign operatives have, if any, in arming and fomenting political and gang warfare, bloody warfare, inclusive of fires during that period. And then to ask, how much has changed, if anything? Are those garrisons still as they were? To what extent have they changed? So I'll kick it off, Jerry, with just a recap, because you talked about how the garrisons came about last week. So just a recap of that and to move it along.
Well, now, after the World War, 1945 finish, and the soldiers and airmen, you never have much naval in, many Jamaicans never serving on the Navy, but them serving at the armies of the West, Britain, and the Air Force. The more educated one, them serving at the Air Force, and the less educated one serving at the army with some of the educated one. So when, after 1945, his Buster man did it, they have the bad man, them after them leave the PNP, them used to bad up the PNP between 1942 come up to the end of the war. When the World War done now, plenty of the educated PNP man will go in the war, coming back to Jamaica, supposed to give up them gun, both rifle and sidearms. A whole heap of them bring in them sidearms quietly. It even caused a mutiny upon board a ship. That's how Dudley Thompson get involved in a politics and get involved in a law as a young man coming back as a pilot out of the British Air Force. So the PNP man, them come back, well educated and thing. When them go and meet, them have on them jacket, they might not wear no tie, jacket and shirt and pants and decent, well educated. Because the PNP was more a middle class organization, mostly middle class support, well educated people fighting for nationalism. Although the JLP is a money man party, because Bustamante to control the labor union, it look like it's a labor party, poor people party, but it's really a money man party. So the PNP was a middle class man party, and the BLP was a money man party. But the JLP, they know them call them dirty. You know the name dirty labor right come from. When the JLP man, them they supported them, the unemployed and the workers in the union. When them come at the meeting, come protect the meeting for Buster. Them in them ordinary shirt and them shirt sleeve and them not dress so tidy and thing. Them start call them dirty labor right. But the PNP man, them all have on them jacket. But under them jacket, the educated man who come home from war or Air Force, have them gun in them jacket, coming to meeting, looking well decent, so PNP well strapped under them jacket, and the JLP a dirty labor right. Well, in that same 1946 now, Buster man to lead a gang of 300 man. Although he was the head of the government, he was the head of the local government, just when election 44. And he was also head of the union. And he was also mayor of Kingston same time. Lead a gang of 300 people from downtown Waterfront, because Waterfront, most of him supported them there. Waterfront worker, rough people. Lead a gang of 300 people to Bellevue, march right across Kingston from West Kingston, Central Kingston, to East Kingston or Bellevue. They're going to mash up a strike over there. Because although he is a union leader, any other union call strike, he will mash it up.
So who's striking here?
The Bellevue workers was striking for better condition, and his PNP man them organize them. So Buster man to lead a gang, come out time government office, go waterfront, go get a 300 man and march cross Kingston to Bellevue, go invade Bellevue, and protect, carry some work and if we break the strike. So, carrying work, they'll break strike. People are strike and you're carrying workers now and protect them. And those workers break the strike and start back work. But so carry man in a Bellevue, him work picket line, break up the picket line, and bust a man inside with, break the strike and him workers and him gang surround the gate and protect the place. And in those times you could have still argue. PNP man and JLP man politics could have still argue and make joke and drink rum and cuss one another without fight. Well, a PNP man, a mechanic man, well-known mechanic named Mr. Nicholas, have him license firearm, drive up a Bellevue gate now and start drive them man, driving a go and JLP a drive, JLP bad man a drive PNP man and PNP man a drive back and thing till the argument get hectic. And them know Sir Nicholas have him gun upon him. And them a threaten Nicholas and Nicholas say, well, it is going cast if when you no lick me going casting on. Them clap him. Have him gun and them clap him and kill him. But them not clap him no gun, them beat him, kill him. I have him license firearm. But some gunshot bust out there, I think Nicholas bust couple shot before him dead. And bust a man inside and panic when him hear the gunshot. Panic inside there, all them of him gang wrong him in there. And some of them worker them catch the Bellevue light. Catch Bellevue light and burn down Bellevue. A 17 madman them burn up inside there.
What year we look at?
1946. 1946.
And Jerry, I see you tear up, you break up.
No, you can imagine madman inside a Bellevue get take care of. And through politics in Jamaica, them light Bellevue fire, just like how them light Eventide in 1980. I like how them light Orange Lane. 1975, 76. And burn up Picnic. And when Picnic escape out of fire, them throw back baby in a fire for burn up. And there is a two side doing these things.
And this is a history. This is recent history we're talking about, of Jamaica. This is a recent history. And to what extent then, Jerry? Because you're three fire mentioned one, even though you spent some time talking about the Buster. But evening tide fire, for example, I mean, that, I don't know the extent. It seemed to me as if we need some kind of atonement on the island for what happened, not just at evening time, but Bellevue and Orange Lane and wherever else we were lighting up people and throwing back babies in fire and so on. I don't think that we have atoned for that.
Not at all.
Is it important for us to do that? At least to take it out, put it on, look on it, call it what it is, and to face our demons.
But whenever the public is enraged and outraged and forcing these things, the two parties come together and the next thing going mad again, Whenever them see the public forcing these, stopping and examining these things, the two parties them come together and quash it down. And I can give you two instances. Bruce Golden broke away. Bruce Golden and several others broke away from the JLP in 1995. And some of them formed the NDM, and them called Bruce Golden to be head of the NDM. So them have three of the people who broke away from the JLP, broke away from Siaga in 1995. Three of them was members of parliament, have seats in the parliament. So this new NDM just coming to parliament now have 3 seats in there. Bruce Golden have a seat at Spanish Town. Mr. Lewis have a seat in St. Elizabeth. And the next one was a third one have a seat. 3 of them did have a seat. And Bruce Golden broke from NDM now and 97 election coming up. And Bruce Golden and NDM going to run independent against PNP and JLP. And Bruce Golden is campaigning and say, NDM is going to start a new clean politics in Jamaica and dismantle garrison politics and gun violence in Jamaica.
And do a truth and reconciliation, because that's another thing he said on Beverly and Manley's program. And do you remember that program?
Yes.
Right. He came out and he said, well, we call the names of whatever and we'll...
Yes.
Because and garrisons to be dismantled.
Yes.
As a result.
And remember now, you people, the media used to keep some debate. Them start some debate before every general election now, where the leaders of both parties or them spokespeople debate one another in public. So it go on a couple times before, head of the PNP, head of the JLP, Siaga and PJ and so on. 97 election now, NDM demand to be in the debate. And the two parties come together and say, no, NDM are like a third party, only JLP and PNP must debate. But they were afraid because Bruce Golan was promising now that if NDM eventually reach an authority, they're going to dismantle garrison politics.
Yes.
And eventually, RGR and I think Miss Dion Jackson Miller was one of the persons instrumental of it, including now. Say, okay, Bruce have in the debate. And when Bruce come in the debate, he spoke, I think, before Siaga and PJ. And Bruce Golan said, I am going to dismantle garrison politics. And I can tell you, I was involved. I was associated with gunmen and start talk out.
I heard him with my own 2 ears.
Yes. And then...
yeah, go ahead.
And then both PJ Patterson and Siaga intervened and said, we don't know about no gun violence and gang politics and garrison politics. To quash down Bruce Golan.
Which was shocking.
And the two of them shake on under the table. It was caught by a camera too. Both PJ saying PNP no know nothing about gang violence and Siaga, those parties, not the individuals, and not any name about no PJ or Siaga. But both JLP and PNP been going on with this gang war and killing from 1946. And this is now 1997. So them shut down Bruce Golan that way. But it's because Bruce Golan, as a JLP, second to Siaga, and one of the strongest man in the JLP, because a tradition developed that the Minister of Housing become the military general for both parties, you know. Tavares was the first one, the real bad man at JLP. Is him introduced Siaga. It's how Tavares introduced and trained Siaga in the badness, you know.
Who's Tavares?
Tavares was the Minister of Housing, because that's how you build up your garrison.
Oh, that's a former Tavares, not this.
Not this
okay,
one.
Okay.
His uncle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This one here, uncle. Mm-hmm. The original Tavares, the Minister of Housing, who formulated the idea to build up these garrisons through the Ministry of Housing, and then you pack them up, you run out the people who was there out of any other party supporter, and you pack up those new buildings with your voter, you have a safe seat. Nobody can win that seat because you pack up these high-rise buildings, all 10, 12 block of them. That alone, you control the voting in each constituency. Tavares was the first one to invent that. Then when PNP come in and Tony Spall and become Minister of Housing, he became the strongman in the PNP. And eventually after that, it became a tradition to the Minister of Housing as the military general for both parties.
So at some point, both parties understood, came to understand, the importance of the housing ministry, the control over land and housing.
Land and housing.
And remaining in power.
Yes, because where you live is where you vote.
Right.
So housing is a scarce benefit. Before, in the early days of JLP, in the early days of party politics in Jamaica, between 1938 and 1951, employment was a scarce benefit. But afterward, 1951 hurricane and so much people was blown down. It was a female who was the Minister of Housing, Rosalie, and a JLP minister. And she devised the mechanics where supplying hurricane housing, building houses after Charlie 1951 hurricane, building housing and gate out, is that going to attract support for your party and make you win the next election. So it's Rosalie and really shows us housing is more scarce benefit, even more than employment, and therefore the Minister of Housing people going to be a key thing because where people live is where them vote.
So Jerry, up to this day, that set in motion, concretized by Michael Manley and Edward Siaga later on, and built upon by everybody else who come afterwards. All of you name every single prime minister who's come afterwards.
And every regime and every election cycle.
Yes. And even to this very day, this election cycle that we're in, yes, we're hearing more about social housing project than we're hearing about almost anything else. And, there are discussions about who cutting more ribbon, who breaking more ground. It's the very same playbook.
Yes. And it's a con game. Because government, in no country, government not obliged to provide housing for people. But it's a trick, just like how them tricked the people in 1944. Before 1944, to have a vote, you have to have land and pay a certain amount of tax. So the British set up the PNP and JLP to help con the people. Instead of now the JLP and the PNP come to the people and say, you must have land that you can get a vote. them come to the people and say, we are going to free, you know. We are going to give you the vote. The vote is nothing. So instead of getting the land, them give the people vote in 1944. And it's land you forget so that you're qualified to be a voter, you know. So you would have get both the land and then you can vote every time.
Right.
So what them do, them give the people the vote and not give them no land. Up to now, them not give them no land. And afterwards, now them start give some of them house. Government not supposed to provide house. Government supposed to take the whole of the idle land and make sure that all people have a living space and also have a share in the cultivation land. All people, including people who live in the city, supposed to have a share in the cultivating land. You know?
Right.
You don't live in the country, but you have a share in the cultivating land. And in town and country, you have a living space. You have a house spot with enough space around your house to plant food for the household.
But obviously this concept doesn't work in terms of seizing power and holding power, this concept.
No, it's not going to work for them. What happened with the people supposed to get the land? Long time ago, and it's still left to be done, and it will be done. And it is going on in many countries who free themselves. The idle land and the land robbed and stolen by the rich. Because the majority of the land that the rich was stolen. The majority it is not bought. It's stolen. So those idle land supposed to be distributed amongst the people for living space, house, and for agriculture.
And you speak of Operation Crime Stop was also a very big thing at the time, if you remember.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So I'll find it in a little while. But the last independence under Mrs. Queen. That's what was promised by D.K. Duncan.
If PNP win.
If PNP win, yes.
But PNP never win.
Well,
but PNP win back 89. So they're supposed to deliver that now.
All right, so here's an article in the Gleaner, August 19, 1980. People's National Party General Secretary D.K. Duncan said Sunday night that Independence 1980 will be the last independence under Mrs. Queen. And as of 1981, Jamaica will be a republic under President Michael Manley. He told the PNP-sponsored Marcus Garvey rally in Mandeville Square, Manchester, that Jamaica had to become genuinely and truly independent. The rally, which was attended by a large crowd, was presided over by Mandeville Mayor Eric Sanderman, and the long lineup of speakers included Prime Minister Michael Manley, Mr. Richard Hart, Mr. Freddie Nita, MP Portia Simpson, MP Derek Rochester, MP Winston Jones, PNP-YO Representative Mr. Dennis Warren, and Mr. Leaford Rowe, among others. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Now, the PNP win 89, 8 years later. So them supposed to deliver now. All know them not deliver that. Because by that time, the PNP had been enlisted now by America. At first it was the PNP with Russia and Cuba, in 1980. And JLP with America. But in the 9 years between 1980 and 1989, the Soviet Union started to crash. The ganja trade and all them things, they get infiltrated and controlled by the same people that control Noriega of Panama, the American intelligence. And grenade that take place, and the PNP never participated in the election in 83, and therefore no whole heap of gun never fire. And there was a lull there. And by the time 1989 election come down, the PNP are ready now to get back into authority to make a deal with America. Because remember, any government going to win the election from 1955, any government going to win election in Jamaica, you have to make a deal with America. It's another 1942 America get involved in Jamaica politics. You never know that.
42.
The FBI, when the PNP when Bustamante broke up from the PNP 1942 and said it's pure communist in there, FBI sent investigation down at Jamaica. FBI, me have a copy of FBI report telling who in the PNP was on the communist side and who upon a fight against the communist.
I've seen that, yes. I've read that, yes.
The FBI under J. Edgar Hoover from 1942.
Yeah.
Because CIA never formed it,
Right.
And by the next 10 years, 1952, anybody going to get elected, any party going to get elected in Jamaica, you have to make a deal with America for sales, you can't get America. So America kick out the jail, JLP 52, 55, I have the PNP coming. Anybody coming, you have to be in line with America. And up to now, the two parties, the two of them have to be aligned with America.
Up to today.
Up to today, the two parties.
And this is the interesting thing. Now, over time, we have always seen a kind of a contention and a conflict in terms of who's aligned with America and who's not.
Yes.
But we're at a time and space now where both parties are aligned with America.
Since the late 1980s. And Michael Manley goes so far as to stop wear the bush jacket, stop talk all of the socialism and deal with all those things, because they don't get involved in the IMF from 1977. And make a deal with America, and that's how he was allowed, and the PNP was allowed to win back 1989.
So that, all right, so we're going back and forward, and it makes a lot of sense because we have to connect the past to the present. It is Sankofaing to understand where we are and why we are where we are.
All right.
In terms of whether or not there have been any changes, and is it a situation of the more things changing more than remain the same? Because so the garrisons were formed for a particular reason.
Yes.
Housing was weaponized for a particular against the people of Jamaica.
Yes,
and
setting them against that.
Yes.
You set some of the people against the rest of the people.
Yes,
you give them housing, and they're loyal to you, and they fight against the other one who was competing to get the same house. Mm-hmm. You get it instead. You're loyal to me. Right. And you say, back off, you don't forget the house, because if you get the house, you're going to vote for the other side.
Right. And in the middle of that is foreign interference.
Yes, the foreign manipulation. Remember from the time of invasion of Africa and enslavement and so on, even on the estate.
Yes.
Some people get better condition on the estate. And remember the estate have them housing, the slave barracks and things. Mm-hmm. And you set people against one another. Mm-hmm. Just like how you set the maroon. You set the maroon against the rest of the African who them used to rescue. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the African used to volunteer and join up with maroon. Mm-hmm. You make a deal the maroon and say, when him come, lock him up. Him believes him will get freedom when him come a maroon. Mm-hmm. Lock him up and carry him come, and you divide. So who get houses against who no get house and who can't get no house.
Right. And who get water drum. Now they move to a black tank. Who get black tank.
All right. Who is running that now? Is who running that now?
The black tank thing?
No, the whole that whole political movement.
What do you mean?
Who is running that political movement now? Who have the house to distribute now?
But the governing party, which is always the case.
How come is not who is the minister of housing? How come is not him a cut the ribbon?
That's a very good question. Who's the minister of housing?
How come is not him a cut the ribbon or cutting the ribbon? Who cutting the ribbon?
Who's the minister of... we ask each other question. Well, the Prime Minister is cutting the ribbon, but who's the minister of housing?
Him is the top one for benefit, so he must go cut the house because the credit must go to him. Andrew Holness met me get house, not the minister housing. Andrew Holness met me get house. So that's a whole visual. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So Holness, not only Andrew Holness, because we have to be respectful. Dr. Andrew Holness met me get house. By the way, what is his doctorate about?
He wrote his thesis. It's about security. I'm going to look for it.
You think that's a simple thing?
No.
Why did he do a thesis on security?
This is, I've been asking that question in this space, and I think it is...
To show you how much of an authority, because he has been taught. Who taught him about this modern philosophy and doctrine and strategy of security? Who was he taught by?
Well, two people I have in mind, but I think you're talking maybe...
Which
you're talking
institution or which power taught him?
In terms of what? The education?
The whole crime...
Well, you tell me, because I could say any name. Who you have in mind?
Who trained the police?
What? Okay, so we have a same person.
The security of Jamaica, the security establishment have a special relationship with the United States security, both military and police.
Yes.
And them have universities.
Right.
And they have all kind of thing. And it's the same people who train the present police commissioner have a doctorate.
Yes.
And the commissioner before, the one who...
the U.S. Jamaican High Commissioner to Ambassador to the U.S.
Yeah, Rakimid?
No, the former Commissioner of Police.
Yeah.
Was
Anderson. No one less cousin. Yeah, trained by England and America.
Oh, they're related?
Trained by Sanders. I think that's the same cousin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Trained by Sanders and the United States establishment. Yeah. Rocky Meade, the head of the army, where them promote to be head of the cabinet, to be secretary of the cabinet, and many other things. All those people are trained.
Well, it's interesting you raise a point, because one of the things that I've said here many times that I've noticed is the militarization of Jamaica's agencies.
Yes, the Haitianization.
Yeah, yes, of Jamaica's agencies, and that to me is pretty interesting. It's also, and this is one of the reasons why I'm very interested in the Prime Minister's dissertation, to see, what he found, the conclusions he came to, and
what
he
has been taught.
And what he has been taught. So yes. But usually during the election cycle, it is the Prime Minister, is it not, who is always responsible, who always faces the camera and cuts the ribbons for, no matter for JP or PNP. And take the credit for the housing.
Yeah.
And so we see a big hula balloon now about the social housing project, and a back and forth thing about that in the media. But this is a playbook of the politicians, isn't it?
Yes.
No matter who in office.
Yes, but who coached him? We are as good as our coaches, Bolt is great, and Shelley and R is great. But it's their coaches is in the other half of the achievement.
Well, the Prime Minister says his mentor, I'm sure, and we have had many discussions about this on air generally, that his mentor was Edward Siaga.
Yes.
So that's where you were getting?
No, yes.
Oh, okay.
Siaga identified him from him was a teenager, just entered university.
Yes.
And Siaga trained him. Siaga himself was spotted because of his academic work. After Siaga go study anthropology, study how human beings behave and live together and so on. Siaga come back to Jamaica, and 1958 him start to write in the paper that a lot of workers employed to the government are supporting the PNP, and no civil servant not supposed to be openly political supporting the PNP. And him point out that the Teachers Association, the Jamaica Agricultural Society, the Civil Service Association, and all of these people who work with government one way or the other are supporting the PNP, and this is not right. And furthermore, the PNP have some truck where drive round with some beards from West Kingston. You know who is beards?
That would be Rastafari?
Yes, but no answer Rastafari now. You look in Eglin in 1958. Some beards from West Kingston driving around in truck where mash up JLP meeting, and they are militarily organized and so on. And if the JLP does not organize gangs as tightly as the beards in the truck driving around for PNP, they will never win an next election in Jamaica. And after I write 2 such articles or 3, people are carried go show Bustamante. And Bustamante says, who is this guy? Who is this guy? I meet him. Who know him? And Tavares said, I know him. And Tavares carry him to Bustamante house out up Mountain View. And them say this bright young guy now is warning us, say, we have to update the gangs that we have, because the Bustamante gang was the first. It now some modern now. PNP gang more modern and mobile in a truck, and them form Group 69, which was a mobile from 1946. So that was how Siaga was spotted at 29 years old, carried into the party, and afterward then become the strong arm of the party. Tavares first as the Minister of Housing, and then him, and them start to build Tavares Garden in a southwest St. Andrew, and then Tivoli Garden, and Rima, and so on and so on. And those garrisons make sure that they can't lose again after that. So now, so now, Wholeness so far, there's a staunch PNP from St. Elizabeth, but him grew up in the mother Spanish town. When him leave what name of the high school name again? I think it's the biggest high school in the Caribbean. The high school in St. Catherine, I believe name. Mm-hmm. Him was head boy there. Mm-hmm. When him leave the Angua University, him and think they was there together now. I think they was best friend now. Wheatley. Remember the minister
IT and so on.
IT and the power and the
electricity.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They were two of them was
we're saying it wrong, but you know what we're talking about. Yeah.
Two of them was top boy at St. Catherine. Yeah. Well, when Wholeness go to university and up at UW, Siaga spot him up there and start to coach him and nurture him. And between 1991, because Wholeness born 72, you know. And when I'm about 19, they call it 1991. Between 1991, you see by 1997, at 25-year-old, Siaga run him in a waterhouse. Previous PNP stronghold, you know. All time Dudley Thompson seat and David Core seat and them places. Run him in a waterhouse and him have MP there from 1997 till now. So I'm a 25-year-old. And Siaga coach him. Look here.
Let me take a break.
Yes.
Right down where I said, because we
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
come back to that, because I think it's very important to ask a question about members of parliament who have been members of parliament in areas that are well-known garrisons from the 1970s to right now today. What questions should we ask about those areas? And what questions should we be asking about these politicians on both sides?
Well,
What have we become?
our population have become like a plaything between. At first, we were a plaything between the East and the West, you know, the Cold War, the Cuba, Russia, and the America. But afterwards, now we become even more of a plaything between the two parties. Because, and yet, most of us wake up, you know, because as you know, in 2020 election, only 37% of the people vote. Mm-hmm. And the JLP only get 21% of the vote. That's a minority government, you know. Mm-hmm. 1/5 of the people vote for JLP.
Yes.
But the PNP was so bad. That's why the JLP could have still get for government with only 20% of the people vote for them. Mm-hmm. And the PNP only gets 16% of the vote. Mm-hmm. The local government election before the last year, I think it was, 70% of the people don't vote, you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if even more come vote this time, if them even get more vote than 37% this time, it's a constant lessening of the people vote, because the majority of people in Jamaica know now say none of them now go help we. Mm-hmm. But it's just that the thing don't emerge yet. Because the people are going to produce something else, you know. People, the population is going to produce a next movement bigger than them. Mm-hmm. But as I warned you before, and it happened before, when the JLP and PNP see themselves in trouble, they have already joined up together more than one time against us, you know.
Yes.
But it's just because people don't realize. I just want to remind you. All right,
and you were, okay, go ahead, Jerry, because I see you on a trend of thought, so go ahead.
Yes, I want to give credit still to my wife, Sandra, and a good friend of mine, Marjorie. Well, them coach me just like how Siaga coach me. And them want me say, Kabu, I asked you some things. I asked straight from the point and get her trouble last time. Don't do it. Don't stray. Just stay. Never give them credit. Because the female them, you know, say female them coach the man them more.
I know. Yes. But thank you, Marjorie, and so on, because
and Sandra.
And Sandra. Because here's the thing. I recognize that your knowledge is wide and deep. And this is why we have to do it in stages. Take one strand at a time, which is why, you know, we're on this road that we're on right now. Jerry, on July 6, 1980, Monty Perkins wrote in the Gleaner, he said, "The revolution," says Trotsky, "does require of the revolutionary class that it should attain its end by all methods at its disposal, if necessary, by an armed uprising, if required, by terrorism. Terror can be very efficient against a reactionary class which does not want to leave the scene of operations."
What year was that?
This is 1980,
All right.
July 6. Right. All right, then he continues. "Intimidation," and he emphasized it, "is a powerful weapon of policy. War, like revolution, is founded upon intimidation. A victorious war, generally speaking, destroys only an insignificant part of the conquered army, intimidating the remainder and breaking their will. Thus, he said, the violence in Jamaica is not senseless, as a council of churches and others would have us believe. Nor is it unnecessary. It is, on the contrary, highly purposeful, as concerted human action invariably is, and it is equally necessary to the objectives of its perpetrators. It is obvious, for example, that sophisticated weapons and ammunition are being imported on a considerable scale to supply terrorism. This necessarily involves international contacts and connections and the expenditure of considerable sums of money. What the police need to do is to discover the identity of the uptown men who are arranging the importation of arms and ammunition, recruiting gunmen, and directing their operations. Nab them, and it will all be over. says Murty Perkins in 1980. But it sounds like a yesterday, righty?
Yes. Now, Murty Perkins was a supporter of the PNP. Enough people don't know, you know. And Murty Perkins was a socialist, even a Marxist one time. And gradually, but he was a journalist also. And he's not going to university, but he learned through journalism almost. And become even a better legal mind than most lawyers in Jamaica, although he wasn't a lawyer. But after a while, he became disillusioned, not only with communism and so on, but with the PNP. And later, he became a supporter of the JLP from about that time there. But he is not supporting none of them. He's saying that the police now supposed to take the situation and study it and nab these big men who is behind the gun them. Both sides. At the same time, Perkins sometimes, as an idealistic person, ignore the fact, because he admired the British very much, like many other people, including Marcus Garvey. He may ignore the fact that the PNP and the GLP were set up by Britain and later by America. When I say set up, established by them, you know. Even some of them don't know that. Because Manley and Buster was groomed, especially Manley was groomed by Britain, and Buster Manley was identified by Britain, and the two of them were gradually given certain privilege and things to counteract the Garvey movement and the rising Rasta movement. But Perkins never, although I'm so bright, none of us know everything or very much. Although Perkins was so bright, you know, so Perkins never know a lot of the things that we are talking about now. And that is why Perkins used to encourage me to come on him program right through the 1990s, because him realized that me and other people know some things that was going on that even most members of the PNP don't know and most members of the JLP don't know. Because as I tell you, and as you will realize, in most churches, in most political organizations, in most business, all of the workers, all of the members, all of the worshippers are sincere people, you know, and don't even know what the top leadership is really doing, but them trust them because them rate them very much.
Going along with it.
And most of even some of the senior people don't know some of the inner workings and plans, like the Green Bay thing, for instance. Most of the top people in PNP don't know nothing about Green Bay. I couldn't believe Sir Michael Manley agreed to such thing. And in the Rastafari movement, even the Rastafari movement has been penetrated by infiltrators and intelligence forces, and most Rastaman and women don't know that. And churches, most of the church members, them don't know what some of the pastors, and I don't say every pastor is bad, you know, but most of them don't know what pastor or bishop or pope are going with.
Mm-hmm. The point is well made. The point is well made and well taken. That at certain levels, the decisions are being made at certain levels with whether it is a foreign operative, because the CIA, for example, you know, they have declassified a lot of their files already, 1979 to 1980. Those files are declassified, a lot of them, you know. A key declassified memo from 1979 outlines U.S. covert action aimed at countering Michael Manley's government, yes, which was aligning with Cuba and the Soviet Union. The CIA proposed direct contact and clandestine support to the opposition party and to the opposition leader. The opposition leader has, in an interview, said he has had no conversation with the CIA. but the CIA, as we learned, as we have learned along the way, if not directly with the leader, then through channels that would have got to the leader. We know the CIA was operating in Jamaica. They have declassified their files. Yes. The question is, to what extent is because we're looking at the 70s and 80s and we're saying it has defined us. It is who we have become. To what extent are these foreign operatives, whether they be from America to the CIA, or Russia through the KGB, or Israel through Mossad, or China through what? Yes, the Revolutionary Party.
Yes, sir.
However, are we now faced with a similar situation on this island, and to what extent?
All right, well, consider this. In the late 80s, Michael Manley said, I have no evidence that Siaga was involved with the CIA or the GLP was involved with the CIA. And you know why him said that?
Why?
He was in negotiation with the United States to get his turn, but him have to modify himself, abandon socialism and abandon many other things, and they did approve, and that's how them get to win. That's how PNP get to win 89. Most of them officers in PNP don't even know about the negotiation, and this is what they do. They imagine, by this time he's now saying that all what I used to say about CIA and Siaga, I don't have no proof for it, and I can't say so and so.
But no, he's negotiating with...
Yes, because they are telling him, like they told his father in 1952, if you get rid of the communists, we will make you beat Bustamante in the next election because Bustamante is getting too big for him boots. What the imperialists do and what every empire do, when they have them little local servant in different countries serving them, when they get too big for the boots, they replace them with their opposite number. Long time, thousands of years, imperialism do that.
In Jamaica today, there is no opposite number to replace them with
exactly.
Because the two parties,
they rotate them. They don't replace them forever. They rotate them periodically, and that is why the GLP now is hoping to break the cycle of only getting 2 terms and get a 3rd term. That's what Woolness depending on. If you get a 3rd term like Patterson, like PJ. Is how Mr. PJ and Patterson, and it's PNP more saying, but it's PJ engineered. Like how PJ broke the cycle and got a 3rd term and a 4th term and was going for a 5th term and get 18 years straight. The GLP would have break the cycle, but they can only do it if them get a special upper. Don't you see how many times the American government has released bad information about the GLP over the last 10 years?
Yes.
About Vaz, about Robertson and St. Thomas, and even hinting even about Wholeness. Say, mind yourself, because that's what they do. America has no friends.
It's a control mechanism that they use.
Yes, imperial powers don't have no friends, they have interest. And from time to time, they will release information about me and you, if it suit them, even though we are them friend. Mm-hmm. Because them have other friends, and if you get too big.
Right.
You
get too big for your breeches.
Exactly.
This is basically what it is, because as you said, there are no friends, America, and it's worse now because Donald Trump is on a whole different path.
Yes.
And so, but the bottom line, Jerry, which I want you to respond to, is the extent to which the 2 political parties on the island now are so similar.
Yes.
That and so in bed with whatever the United States is, or the policies of the United States.
Yeah.
What kind of what's the outcome of that in terms of whether or not the U.S. is supporting one party over another, or the extent to which these 2 parties are now going at each other, and the way that we see them going at each other like rabid dogs, to win the U.S. favor?
Yes, because it's 2 concubines. One concubine can be in favor for all 1 year or 6 months and go and carry her on a trip and thing. And the next 2 years, the other one get her out and the other one me carry her on a trip if me have money. And when money run out, me don't have none at all neither. All right, I just want to remind you something now.
It's a Ming dynasty.
Yes. Wholeness, as I say, was groomed from him at 19 years old until him win the seat when he was 25 years old. Now, he was groomed in the same way by another person who Siaga was grooming, but was not so tough and would drop out. Them can't take it. There's a young man named Panton, who at least Anna was married to. Panton was a bright young star in a GLP, and Siaga sent him in Manchester to get out John Jr. John Jr. was about to retire, but he was going back one more time. And Panton was making great strides in Manchester. Now, just like in business and in intrigue and so on, even gangsters and money people, they support, just like how the U.S. support both PNP and JLP, gangsters and money man, they support both sides of a conflict, but them support one more than one, and they juggle them against one. Even the gangs are run that way.
So the business community works that way, and we know that.
And they donate to 2 parties, but them give one a bigger donation.
And like you said, gangsters also do that.
Yes.
And this is something that we cannot ignore, because there's a third party in Jamaica that is bigger than any other third party, and that's the gangsters.
Yes. All right. Now,
This is a commercial.
No, this is why Panton left Jamaica.
No, I know he left. I know he left, and I know
Jamaica.
he said because there was also conversations about whether or not he was afraid,
yes,
and couldn't deal with the criminal element of the violence.
I don't know anything about no criminal element. I don't know about no criminal.
No,
but
it was violence.
But one thing I know is that
but that's what came out when he left.
But what I know is that big people will help both sides of the contest in case anyone win, they have a good relation with them. So when a man reaches that...
This is the way that politics is run in Jamaica, right? So where are we now? Because in the last 10 minutes what we have, in terms of what we have, what we... The children who grew up in the 70s, the politics of the 70s, the politics of the 80s, that seem to have taken hold and taken root in Jamaica. Yes. Are we moving away from that in spite of and despite what Bruce Golding tried to do?
Does this we include the PNP or the JLP or the population?
As a nation.
It is not we who produce the PNP and the JLP, you know. We must get this clear. We feel that way like as we produce them. Just like how we feel like is we produce Bolt and Asafa. Yes, we produce them and we bear them as children. But it's a system that coach them and send them through. So now the two-party system in Jamaica is running. It's not me and you put them out there now. But we feel so sidelined that sometimes we include ourselves in a dear sphere.
Is Jamaica as a nation moving away from... in your opinion and your estimation, and it is informed. There's an informed perspective that you have. Yeah. Just looking at 1976 all the way to now. Yeah. To what extent have we moved away?
In 1980, 80% of the people voted in the election because they were so well involved. Everybody said, "Boy, I have to vote." Now, if it comes down to a time that in the last election is 63% vote, you don't see the way that the people moving. Our people are moving away from giving diehard support to these two parties. And that's why they know that the atmosphere is pregnant to that. One of them going to disintegrate first, you know. And they might even join up back together. These things have happened before, you know. That when one of them disintegrate, some other force or some other thing going to rise up and replace one of them in either the JLP and PNP, you know. And that's why when some broke out of the JLP and formed the NDM, that is why it was so dangerous for JLP, you know. Mm-hmm. The money dried up from the support from JLP, you know. The support of the big money people dried up to the JLP support because Siaga was not being compliant with them, and they were threatening to tell him, say, you can't win the election again, you know. If you don't bring back Bruce Golding, that's how Bruce Golding went back to the JLP, you know. Siaga was given an ultimatum that if you don't bring back Bruce Golding into the JLP, we are going to withhold all of our donation to JLP. And Siaga was forced to call back Bruce Golding. And Bruce Golding helped them almost win the election 2002. And that's why within 3 years, Siaga left politics. Bruce Golding became the head of the JLP in 2005. And by the next 2 years, almost colorless person politically, Bruce Golding, defeated the most popular person in the history of Jamaica politics, Portia Simpson Miller, and beat the PNP 2 years later, especially because he got information about Trafigura and know how to use it properly. So Siaga had been sidelined by PJ now. PJ know if he sideline Siaga and get him out because Siaga start running out and PJ say, oh, him is black scandal back and start running out. And the people of Jamaica never like that, you know. Then Bruce Golding, remember Bruce Golding as deputy Siaga made a comment about PJ. I'm kind of sorry when PJ took over from Michael Malley. Yeah, Bruce Golding. I'm kind of sorry for PJ, you know. Because in a way, he's like a boy in a man's job. PJ as Prime Minister is like a boy in a man's job. He can't handle it. But PJ quiet, you know. But PJ much more smart and much more skillful than them. And sideline both Siaga and even caused Bruce Golding to leave the party. Because when people said to Siaga, say, why don't leave the party make a win? Him say, I can't leave, there's nobody worthwhile to take over. So Bruce Golding was insulted when him said, no, because for 21 years he had been Siaga second, you know. So he was insulted, saying the boss, him can't leave because there's nobody who can take over.
But at the end of the day, so we saw PJ Patterson with the third term and the fourth term and going for the fifth as you intimated. But at the same time, we are in a situation now where the JLP is going for the third
term to break that cycle.
And it appears to me as if it's a stronger PNP that is now being fielded as opposed to the prior election.
Yes,
right?
because there was splitting after Peter Phillips challenged Porcher at a bad time. Right. And then Bunting challenged Peter Phillips at a bad time, and a series of challenges, and various factions in the PNP, at least 4 factions in the PNP, including a very strong Philip Palwell. The PNP, the same thing was happening in GLP for years enough. Factions and factions, gangs of 5, gang of 11. Same kind of thing that happened in GLP in the 90s. Took place in the PNP in the early 2000s and rendered it almost like a next GLP. Them kind of look like them overcoming that now, but you see money is spent left, right, and center. But I said the United States is willing, if you come up to scratch, to give you a chance, So Golden make sure says he have the right profile and right behavior for the America endorse him. And you don't lick out against Israel even though you are a Jew. You make sure not lick out against Israel because you want to get popular in Jamaica.
Right. You're not taking Palestine to the stage at all.
Yes.
And so on. You're towing the line.
Yes. And in the meantime, as you know, for years now, the GLP and Holiness has been serving both Britain and America. Them serve Britain by trying to get out Baroness Scotland, and hundreds of millions of money them get to do that. And them serving America by being the cat's paw in Haiti, I used to what America is.
And more, actually.
Yes.
The Caribbean Basin Security Initiative and so on. So let's see what happens from here. Last week when we left here, the JLP was on stage. Daryl Vaz made some comments. There was some shooting at within the vicinity of the JLP meeting. The news subsequently said that it wasn't politically motivated, but the response of Daryl Vaz on stage was interesting because it was very strident.
Yes.
And if it were, one wonders if the shooting was politically motivated, if it turned out to be politically motivated, the extent to which they would have had to tamp down that energy that was rising, because that is the kind of energy that sounded very similar to the comment you reminded us of last week, blood for blood and fire for fire kind of commentary. It's very interesting how this thing is unfolding. We hope there's no violence. There's a lot of rhetoric, and a lot of this is harsh words coming from both sides.
Yes.
So we hope they tamp this down and remember 1976, remember 1980.
Yes, and whether they tamp it down or not, they know, just like how the United States and the Western Empire is gradually imploding at its height, because it's at the height of power and at the height of weight that buildings topple now. So it is that whatever happens to any of them, one of them going to implode first, whether JLP or PNP, or join together. Whatever happens, they know that the people of Jamaica are going to come up with something better than the UPP. What name? The one with the guy named Patterson.
Or the UIC?
UIC and all of these other things which are not the people producing these things. The people is going to produce and going to produce some alternative or some successor.
Because our backs are now against the wall, and there's no other way to go but to produce our own. And I totally agree with you. Thank you so much, Bongo Jerry. Enough respect as usual. We'll continue the conversation with Bongo Jerry. We'll tell you when he'll be back in studio. We're depending on him to take us through this silly season.
Yes, and there's no one person. This thing is a teamwork. Look here, success is a teamwork. There's no one person who everything depends on. But you see how enjoyable it is to work together. Because
that's true.
That is how the people produce. They produce a team. And the same way that we have produced the athletics and the different thing, we are capable of producing the rescue, the lifeboat, the rescue, everything. Thank you very much. You
were the, just before you go, you were the, for those persons who have watched the Bob Marley documentary, what name again? Who Shot the Sheriff?
Yes.
There's a commentary in the documentary where a white man is saying that when they came into Jamaica to film the concert, and that when they heard that Bob Marley got shot, And so they had to come back, and you see them actually going through Fern Gully and so on. And they said they went up to Strawberry Hills. And he said it was in the car that he told the people with him in the car, including Chris Blackwell was in that car. But the people with, I don't know if Chris Blackwell was there, but he told the people in that car that his father is a director of the CIA.
Yes, it is well known that journalist and videographer. Yes, he was a young man, and his father was really the director of the CIA.
Yeah.
And they had already made contact inside Bob Marley camp. And Bob wasn't even aware of it. That same year,
Yes.
1976, because contraband was found in his entourage luggage coming back to Jamaica from a tour. Contraband including what them call it again? Them have a name for it. Illegal weapon, and he had difficulty getting visa on the next tour to come out of Jamaica, and it was such a CIA operative who helped them to get visa after he infiltrated a Rastafari organization that Bob Marley was part of.
We pick up from there next time. But you were driving that car.
No, well, I went for the pilot. That flew out Bob Marley next
So
month.
you heard-
I was there and thereabouts.
So you heard when he said
Yeah.
that his father.
Yeah.
You see, this is the jury we're talking to.
And the man that I named that provided those visas.
Yes.
If you Google his name, you'll be surprised at how accomplished him is. Because when we met him, he had just gone into the Foreign Service of the United States at 26 years old in 1976, and his first posting was in Jamaica. Google him name, Steve Man. His first posting was in Jamaica, and his second posting was in Moscow, as I told you. And he has become one of the most prominent Foreign Service professionals in the history. And Foreign Service Foreign Service main activity is intelligence and the use of intelligence.
We're leaving you with that assignment.
Look up Steve Man. Just Google him name.
Yes, Google him in the meantime. So we'll leave you with that assignment if you want to know more about Jamaica in the 60s and 70s. Good morning, Mr. Biggie. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good.
Boy, you come school late?
Eh?
You come class late?
I did. I will take any punishment that I deserve.
Yes, we'll think about it. We'll think about it. Detention, suspension, any one of them, expulsion. Any one of them can play. Any one of them can play. So, 35 years. Natalie was in studio with us this morning. Jerry, you must remember when IRFM came on. You must remember when IRFM came on.
You must what?
You must remember when IRFM came on.
Yes, very much so. Very much so, because there was this regional radio station, Radio North East, and ironically and surprisingly, Siaga as a very, not surprisingly in a way, Siaga it was who facilitated the divestment of JBC, because JBC was always a problem to Siaga. You know, that's because the JBC strike. You know,
because leave it with Big A.
Yes. Siaga as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance decided to divest, because all of these radio this and radio that was parts of JBC, not true?
Right, and that is why we got so close to Babsy herself, because she was the one who was facilitating that process.
Yes, and she knows a lot about it.
She's a part of her, you know. She's an employee.
Yes, and
she's not paid, but she's an employee.
I know, but she know the business. She know broadcasting. She know public relations.
Yeah.
And KLS was a part.
Yes, Radio Northeast, KLS, Radio West.
The one in Mobile. Yeah. Hot 102.
Right, Hot 102.
Yes.
Because Hot 102 was Radio West.
Yes. So Siaga caused the divestment, and it led to this, which is great.
Yes, of course.
Indigenous culture, folk. This is a folk radio station. Something produced by the natural affinity of the people themselves.
Organically.
That is the word. That is the word.
So
I wasn't it within 3 months it became number one?
Same day.
I tell people now, and I say, I wonder if I'm exaggerating.
No, you're not exaggerating. No.
Look here now.
It's same day beginning.
And look here, and you never plan it. You plan it, but you never plan.
Yes, because we don't even know, so we're supposed to be number one.
But when you're doing the right thing, this is what produces spectacular differences of performance. When you see a man like Bolt run so far ahead and start playing joking.
It's true.
I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, no, you don't have to say no more. We get it. It well said. It well said.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jerry.
Yeah, man.
And Big A, August 1.
Morning, Big A.
Uncle Jerry Wagga.
And August 1, we're up, so.
Kaya.
Kaya Herbals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's going to be... Oh, I must talk about what happened, Kaya.
No, man, you can speak. Of course, it will be
My phone number.
the official...
Go ahead. The official.
It will be the official launching of the reggae wall.
And my microphone I use. So it's going to be the official launch, as Big A is saying, of the reggae.
The reggae
wall of fame. Mm-hmm.
And which is a big part of the 35th anniversary celebration. And what it is to honor 35 icons of the reggae music industry. Those that have built IRIT and those that IRIT has built over the past 35 years. And you need to come on out to the launch to hear who these persons are who will make it to the wall. And
that's going to happen on the 1st?
Yeah, we are naming the first 30. And
we are
inviting you to not only come out and hear the first 30, but to find out how you can participate in nominating the other 5, and how it will how you can participate going forward, because this is a work in progress. It will be something that is continuous. We will be adding to the wall on a yearly basis. So all of that will be explained. And we would love your participation.
And it's not me big talk,
No.
When he said we'd love your participation, don't get it twisted. It's Uno. It's Uno talking. No, but seriously, it is an open invitation to be at Kaya Herbals on August 1, which is Friday. Right. And
we will be broadcasting the launch of the Wall of Fame live. But it would be nice to see you in the building, especially if you have been following IRFM for a long time. It will be nice to come on out and meet and greet with some of the persons who you have known and loved over the years, but never get a chance to meet. And even if you have met us, it's a birthday party. You are all. It is about.
It's an open invitation
to family to come on down. And I'm saying. Who is it that is going to make the 35?
Well, that's a big thing to me. It's like, the 35?
Who are the 30 firstly? Yeah. And then,
30 and then the 5.
And then the 5.
And we'll hear who are the 30.
Yes.
On Friday.
Right.
Wow. That's a big deal.
So,
Yeah, so we're waiting for that announcement on Friday.
Who are you thinking?
Who depending on your mind. But not only that, so you can think about who might be in the 30, but then we're also going to ask you to say who the other 5.
Tell you how you can participate in naming the other 5.
All right. Well, it sounds good, it looked good, and all of that. Natalie was here this morning just reminiscing about being here from, Natalie here from 1991.
1990?
That's what I thought. She says 91. I think she get it wrong. But anyway, we work with it.
I remember Natalie in our school uniform.
Right. She said it was 91. Remember, we were mid-1919 or so. Maybe by the time we see her, it was early 91.
Well.
Yeah, we just never realized. I mean, we were so busy being number one that we never realized. It
is. But,
so thank you, Mr. Bigay. I think
you figured out is your 30?
I have totally figured out my 30.
And you'll also
my 35.
Learn, part of what you will hear on Friday is how we chose the 30. Right, the process that we went through to choose the 30, because it is can be quite complex if you just ask somebody to choose 35 persons from an industry that so many persons have built. Right. When we were
from 1967,
it is easy to come up with 200 names of persons who have been contributed to the music.
I start dreams to my 35 them already. Every night my dreams to one next one.
Right.
Last night my dreams to Lee Scratch Perry.
Right. I remember now it is not limited.
It
is not limited to artists, because the music was not built only on artists. The music was built on musicians, producers, engineers, sound systems.
Lee Scratch Perry.
Right. It was built on so many different factors. of the music. Like Jerry could probably tell me who are some of the greats in the music.
Lee Scratch Perry.
That helped to shape the music, you think?
Well, him is one, as you know, Coxon, and the technical man.
Lee's.
I'm a technical man with it.
Right, so Coxon Dad, yeah.
Was a
You're not talking about Tubbies, by the way?
No, man, the man from Mobile, man. Was a radar man in the Air Force.
Headley Jones?
Headley Jones.
Oh, Headley Jones.
Yeah, man,
Headley Jones is on your list, Big A?
Yeah, Jones.
You know, when name again, Coxon Duke Reed, all-time policeman.
Duke Reed.
Always loaded.
Bush. Like when they bust it.
So you put Lee Scratch Perry. Oh, you took so long to call for him there.
Scratch Perry, man, used to work with Coxon.
Okay.
Okay. Him also technical man.
Right.
When he's in the room, the wheelers and really bring them up.
Right, see that?
He know it.
I'm right, what about music? Terrific.
Right.
Joe Higgs, a key.
Joe Higgs.
Joe Higgs,
right.
So what the females?
What do you put them on? Miss Pottinger.
Miss Pottinger.
Sonny Pottinger.
Yes.
Was one of the first selectors. She bought finance.
You're not taking the picture?
I tell my young man. And him go on farm work and buy music. I know, so when him go on farm work, two things in the middle, you know.
Oh.
Buy a record, the farm worker, then buy a record and bring back. And buy a tape recorder. The first real-to-real tape recorder, the farm worker come back with a big...
Oh, yeah, such a man.
Right. You know, play back
okay.
rhythm and blues and country and western. That's why the country and western things are big in Jamaica. Then WINZ, and then the Haitian radio station and the Cuban radio station.
Right.
Merengue and we'll mix them up.
We need a whole day to talk
about
Jerry, don't it?
So we'll invite Jerry on a whole different mission now if we talk about the history of the music. All right, so this making way for the big A.